Chapter 1460. Before the midterm exam, Nianj had endured for many days like everyone else. When the results came out, it could be seen that she had worked very hard. Previously, when she was in the second year of high school, her grades were only above average. When she was in the third year of high school, she could understand a portion of the curriculum and work hard to revise. In the end, she could obtain more than 100 points in the midterm exams. The teacher was already very satisfied with her current results and encouraged her to continue working hard. She wanted to take advantage of the remaining time to continue to take more remedial lessons and complete all the courses in the second and third years. This way, if her ranking could continue to rise during the final exam, the teacher would definitely not let her grandfather down. Without a doubt, Qin Sighting's results were still first in the school year. It was said that he had been first in the school year for a long time. No one could shake this first place. According to Nianj's observation of him, she found that although he would listen in class, he was not overly focused like other top students. Nor was he the type of person who lowered his head to focus on learning. He seemed to be blessed by nature and had an absolute ability to absorb all kinds of knowledge. In addition, he was also very serious. Unlike other rich kids who dawdled around every day, his life was bright, clean, and had an accurate direction. Gradually, he seemed to have become her wind vane in school every day. Then look. The total score is 185 points lower than yours. Last month, when you lent me your notes to copy, I said that if I can reach the passing mark and exceed the estimated score by at least 50 points, you should give me your phone number. Look, I've exceeded quite a bit. You're right. Qin Sighting nodded. You're right. You're right. Qin Sighting did not answer. Although she was the one who suggested it, and he did not speak or agree, he did not reject it. Nianj had no choice but to compromise. How about this? During the final exam, if my results are more than 30 points higher than now, you'll give me your phone number? Qin Sighting did not look at her, as though he did not hear her. Nianj did not want to be discouraged, but she still felt a little hurt. He clearly did not reject her at that time. It was just a phone number. It wasn't like she would disturb him. After the exam, it happened to be a rare 2-day weekend. Recently, the school had been too tight. They could only rest for half a day on Sundays. It was rare for them to have 2 days of vacation. Zhao Xiaoqing asked Nianj out to shop. She was wearing a beautiful floral dress and held her arm as they walked. Didn't you do well in the exam this time? The teacher already said that you, a student who skipped a grade, was ranked in the top 300 of the school year. You've left all the students at the bottom of our class behind. Why are you still so listless? Who provoked you? Nianj forced a smile. No, it's probably because in my current situation, I can only shake off the last few with this bit of ability. However, the hundreds of people in front of me still need to continue looking up to me. It's really too difficult to catch up. Thinking about it, I feel that what adults usually complain about is very reasonable. What is it? Students are the most tiring. When you grow up, you'll only feel tired because of the endless responsibilities and the burden of life. But when you're a student, you'll feel tired because of the combination of mental and physical strength. You'll have endless homework, endless revision, and endless grades. Tisk, haven't you always been extroverted? Why are you suddenly depressed? Zhao Xiaoqing smiled. Did you break up again? The so-called breakup in Zhao Xiaoqing's mouth was already Nianj's normal state. For example, if Qin Sighting ignored her one day, or if she said something about being ignored by Qin Sighting, or if Qin Sighting went to the student cadre for a meeting and did not attend class, these could all be collectively referred to as Nianj's breakup stage. More or less. Nianj sighed. Zhao Xiaoqing could not help but laugh. I think you should change your target. Many boys in our class like you. Nianj did not say anything. She just lowered her head to look at her phone. The class monitor had just sent her a registration form to hand in on Monday. It was a temporary vacancy in the cram school. Coincidentally, she had filled it in. She picked up her phone and began to fill in the form. In fact, Nianj's views and methods on many things were frank and open. However, when it came to Qin Sighting's small and obscure love, She realized that she was actually quite cowardly. After filling in the form, the class monitor asked where she was. After filling in the form, the class monitor asked her where she was. She said that she was shopping with Zhao Xiaoqing outside. The class monitor asked if they needed a man to help them carry their bags. Shi Nianj helplessly smiled and replied no. The class monitor was very regretful and wished her a good time shopping. Only then did the message chat end. After shopping for several hours, she did not buy anything. After all, she usually wore her school uniform for a longer time. She did not lack daily clothes, so there was really nothing to buy. Seeing that Shi Nianj had been listless, Zhao Xiaoqing invited her to the dessert shop to eat a chocolate donut before the two of them went home. During the rare 2-day break after the midterm exam, Shi Nianj's emotions could not come up. After shopping for a day, she returned home and stayed in seclusion. Occasionally, she would call her grandfather to report her academic results. Occasionally, she would look at some suitable learning materials that her grandfather had sent her. When she had nothing to do, she would look at the human skeleton in the study room and observe the position and composition of every bone. She did not feel sleepy even after counting them one by one. However, there seemed to be something pressing down on her heart. Her mind kept flashing with the image of Qin's sightings in different expression after seeing her results. She could only blame herself for not working hard enough. She dared to show off in front of him with her mediocre grades. It was already good that she did not get mocked by him. What encouragement could she hope for? He did not owe her anything, and there was indeed no need for him to encourage her. On Sunday night, Shi Nianj packed up her study materials and books. She had to return to school tomorrow. After showering, she lay on the bed and closed her eyes. Her mind was filled with Qin's sighting. She raised her hand and knocked her head. She should find time to help out in her grandfather's laboratory for a few more days to distract herself. She then recalled that she had yet to show her results to her parents. A while ago, after her parents returned to China, they returned to America after staying at home for half a month. Right now it was daytime in America. She got up and took a photo of the papers with her phone before sending it to her parents. A few minutes later, she went to warm a glass of milk for herself and was about to drink it when she heard a message from her phone on the bed in the bedroom. She thought that her parents had replied to her after seeing her results. She drank the milk carelessly. After a long while, she slowly returned to the bed. She lifted the blanket and prepared to lie down. She picked up her phone and casually swiped it open to take a look. In the next moment, Shi Nianj's expression fell into an unprecedented emptiness and blankness. She even forgot to breathe. When she returned to her senses, she took a deep breath and stared at the unfamiliar number and text message on the screen. She saw that there were only 3 cold words on it: Qin's sighting. Chapter 1461. Shi Nianj stared at the 2 words, wishing that she could stare a hole through the phone screen. Her number was written on his notes when she made the suggestion before the midterm exam. She had only casually written a string of numbers, but she had indeed written it in front of him. He knew it was her number. However, how could she dare to think that Qin's sighting would really save her phone number? He probably forgot about it after taking a glance at it. He didn't remember that she had written her number. Now it seemed that not only did he remember, but he might have also saved her number on his phone? Oh my God. She couldn't imagine. Who would be able to fall asleep? Shi Nianj held her phone and looked at it for a long time before noticing that this message was sent 15 minutes ago. 15 minutes before, it was already so late. After he sent her a message, she did not immediately reply. After so long, he should be asleep. After all, he still had class tomorrow, Monday. Furthermore, regardless of whether she replied or not, he probably wouldn't wait for her to reply. He only sent her a message to tell her his number. But what if he was waiting? After all, whether it was out of politeness or something else, she should reply. She hesitated for a long time and typed a long paragraph on her phone, but in the end she deleted it. In the end she only replied, "All right, I'll remember it. See you at school tomorrow." After sending the message, she hugged her phone and did not let go. She could not bear to put it down, nor could she bear to sleep. However, she was still sleepy. Furthermore, She knew that regardless of whether he was asleep or awake, he would definitely not reply to this message. After all, after so long, she understood his temper. It was already a miracle that he could send a message with his number. She had to be content. She closed her eyes and thought about it. In the end, she fell asleep in a daze. When she opened her eyes the next day, she thought that she had a dream. She quickly picked up her phone and flipped through the message records. When she saw the 3 words Chin citing from that number, her heart instantly relaxed. It was true. Last night, she was so excited that she forgot to save it. She quickly remembered the string of numbers and saved his name. Chin citing's name was saved into her address book. When she went to school, she saw that her male god, who had arrived early, was already sitting there. Shirnianj walked over with a smile. After sitting by his side, she turned to look at him. The clean young man was only sitting there reading formulas during the morning self-study. He did not come to see her at all. It didn't matter if he didn't look at her. It didn't stop her from looking at him. She was now a little fangirl who had been treated to a meal by her idol and had his phone number. The midterm exams weren't as relaxing as she had imagined. Instead, the burden of studying became heavier. She was about to sprint for all kinds of mock exams, major and minor exams, and the final exam in 2 months. To put it simply, the 3rd year of high school wasn't suitable for dating at all. If you wanted to date, you didn't even have the time and energy to spare. At most, you could only hide your thoughts. Shirnianj also calmed down a lot after obtaining Chin citing's number. She never called or sent him a message. She still maintained the state of sitting by his side in class every day. After a few exams, it was finally the end of the term. After the final exam results were released, Shirnianj's score was 40 points higher than the midterm exam. Her ranking in the school year had also advanced by about 20 places. Although she was still ranked at the bottom, at least she had improved. She did not have the ability to be a top student. In addition, because she had skipped a grade, the teacher was still satisfied with her results. He even took some time out to ask her to go to the office and help her explain all the questions she had done wrong. This was to prevent her from encountering such a difficult problem in the next exam. Shirnianj was also serious in her studies. Although she had been a little tired these few months, her ability to accept was considered strong. Even now, she did not feel any psychological pressure. It was almost winter break and the spring festival. The holidays for the 3rd year of high school wouldn't be too long. After the final exam, they still had to study in school for about a month. They would only be able to officially take a break when the new year was approaching. But the break was only about 20 days. It wasn't easy for her to finally be able to take a break. There were only 4 to 5 days left before the spring festival. Shirnianj's birthday was in February of the Gregorian calendar, the first month of the lunar calendar. It happened to be her birthday during the holiday. The day before the holiday, Zhao Xiaoqing gave her a beautiful and exquisite crystal box, saying that it was a gift for her to come of age in advance. That's right. After this birthday, she would be 18 years old. Hao Xiuxia was a fat straight man. He didn't know what to give her. After asking around, he heard that girls were all foodies, so he prepared a gift box for her. Shirnianj held the box and looked at the pile of puffy food inside. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but she still accepted it. After school, she specially carried it home. As it was almost the spring festival, her parents were on leave. It was rare for them to fly back to spend the new year together. Shirnianj placed the gift in Lishui Villa and followed Uncle Chin back to the Shur family. The Shur family had many relatives, but because her parents had moved out to live alone very early and rarely visited their relatives, there were only the 3 of them during the spring festival. Then on the 2nd day of the new year, they would go to her grandfather's place to accompany him. However, her grandfather was even busier than these young people. He only went for a day before he chased him back, saying that he found them noisy. Until Shirnianj's birthday. After all, it was the day she came of age. Her parents had planned to hold a banquet for her and invite various partners in High City to hold a banquet for her coming-of-age ceremony. But she rejected them. Even though Shirnianj had grown up in a good family, she did not like the deception in the upper class. What coming-of-age ceremony or banquet? It was just a place for these adults to talk. They could find any reason, but they could not let her be the reason. Then, her parents simply held a simple banquet for her at home. They bought cakes and gifts. Some of their friends who had a good relationship with the Sher family also came. Sher Nianj drank more or less. Although there were only a few glasses of red wine, she did not drink much in the past. Of course, her alcohol tolerance was very poor. After sending away the guests at night, her cheeks were flushed. Auntie Xiang saw that she was in the mood after drinking red wine, and quickly helped her back to the bedroom, asking her to lie down and sleep early. Sher Nianj tossed and turned in bed, unable to fall asleep. She had already been on holiday for so many days. She was not used to the sudden slowing down of her life. With the help of the alcohol in her body and a little impulse, she couldn't suppress the desire in her heart. She really wanted to see her idol say happy birthday on the day she became an adult. Even if it was just a few cold words, it would be good. She searched the bedside, picked up her phone, and found the number with Qin Sighting's name on it. Chapter 1462. She stared at the string of numbers and the 3 words. She bit her lip and slowly slid her fingers back and forth on her phone. After thinking about it for more than 10 minutes, her remaining rationality forced her to retract her fingers. However, when she placed her phone back under her pillow and closed her eyes, she saw the string of numbers on her phone. She felt that she should do something, but what should she do? Even if she really sent a text message, what should she send? After dawdling for a long time, Sher Nianj took out her phone again. She stared at the number on the screen and sent 3 words. Qin Sighting. After sending it, she raised her head to look at the time displayed on the screen. It was already 10:30 p.m. It was winter vacation now. Unlike usual, everyone slept very late. According to a normal and healthy schedule, he must have already fallen asleep. However, she had already sent it. Even if he wasn't asleep, he probably wouldn't reply to her. However, she felt very satisfied after sending it. She placed her phone back on the bedside table and took a deep breath. All right, let's sleep. However, before she could fall asleep, her phone vibrated on the bedside table. Sher Nianj opened her eyes in a daze and looked at the phone above. When she saw that the screen had also lit up, her heart skipped a beat. Could it be at this time? Would Qin Sighting reply to her? She abruptly sat up from the bed and quickly took her phone back. When she opened the screen, she felt as though her heart was about to jump out of her throat. She looked down and saw that it was really Qin Sighting. He really replied. Qin Sighting? Question mark? A question mark. Although there were very few words, and it could be said that there was not even a word, only a punctuation mark, it was enough to shock Sher Nianj. A question mark. A question mark sent by Qin Sighting. Such a concise question mark definitely proved that it was really him. But since it was a question mark, it meant that she could continue replying. I'm not sleeping anymore. Sher Nianj pressed her phone against her heart for a while, before quickly sitting upright on the bed. She held her phone and seriously looked at the question mark on it. She then began to carefully consider how she should reply. Then she slowly poked the screen with her finger word by word. Did I disturb your rest? She then carefully clicked send. Her phone soon vibrated again. He actually replied very quickly. No, I didn't disturb him. Then he shouldn't be reading or busy right now. Perhaps he was lying on the bed like her and hadn't fallen asleep yet. Rounding it up, it was equivalent to Almighty Qin lying down and chatting with her. She held her phone with one hand and quickly covered herself with the blanket with the other. She held her phone and muttered softly, calm down, calm down. I have to be calm. If this continues, I won't be able to continue chatting. What should she say now? Holding her phone, her face was full of sweetness, but also a little distressed. Then, she bit her lip and replied, the weather in High City has been quite cold recently. Do you go out often during the holidays? Be careful of the cold. School will start in a week. Be careful not to catch a cold. She could not hesitate anymore. If she continued to dawdle like this, Qin Sighting might fall asleep. However, after sending it over, she looked at the content and regretted it. What did she post? What cold protection? What cold? She instantly covered her face and burrowed into the quilt, hugging her phone. She couldn't tell if she was upset or something, but there was a hint of sweetness in her heart. Her phone vibrated again. She lowered her head to take a look. It was another simple and cold word. In. She paused for a moment and glanced at the time. There was less than an hour and a half left until the end of the day. But in this hour and a half, he could fall asleep at any time. Looking at the words that he had restored, there were only 3 words and 3 punctuation marks in total. However, Sure Nianj felt that these words were extremely beautiful. Looking at Qin Sighting's words displayed on the screen, she felt that they were extremely warm and gentle. She was also afraid that if she continued speaking, Qin Sighting would find it annoying. She was afraid that if she chatted with him in the middle of the night, not only would she disturb his rest, but he would also feel that she was too long-winded. After all, in his eyes, they were only deskmates. He could only reply to her because they were deskmates. It was still a holiday and they couldn't see each other usually. It was really not good for her to send him a message in the middle of the night without a reason. But what else could she say? Just say good night and I'll sleep? Then her goal of sending him a message tonight would not be achieved. She just wanted to wish him a happy birthday. What should she send? Should she say, Almighty Qin, today is my birthday. Can you say happy birthday to me? She felt a little stupid. Or should she say, Dear deskmate, I'm 18 years old today. She felt even stupider. How could she let him know that it was her birthday today, and take the initiative to say happy birthday? She turned back to look at her room. There was still a cake that a relative had sent over in the morning that she had not eaten, and had forgotten to take down. She then looked at the crystal calendar by the side. Sure Nianj's eyes moved. She lifted the blanket and ran to the cake. She opened the cake box and moved the calendar on the table close to the cake. After thinking for a moment, she found her student ID and placed it by the side. Her date of birth was written on the student ID. After placing them together, she felt satisfied and used her phone to take a photo and send it to him. After sending it, she quickly sent a cute smiley face to him. Silence was better than words. He would understand, right? After sending this photo and the smiling face, the message was like a stone sinking into the sea. She did not receive a reply for a long time. Was he asleep? It was almost 11 o'clock. She had just come over to prepare the cake, the calendar, and her student ID. She had also taken a few photos to find a good and clear angle. It had been so long. He should be asleep. The sweetness in Sure Nianj's heart that was about to float instantly fell. However, when she thought about it carefully, to be able to receive a message from Qin Sighting on her birthday, and there were 3 of them, this could be considered a birthday gift to her. With this thought, she felt happy again. She took the cake out and asked Andy Xiang to put it in the refrigerator. She then closed the door and returned to bed. This time, she covered herself with the blanket, but she could not fall asleep. She had been wondering if he had seen her text message. Could it be that the photo had failed to be sent? He didn't see it. After thinking for a long time, she was afraid that he had really fallen asleep and did not dare to disturb him. After a few minutes, the phone in her hand vibrated again. She immediately picked it up and quickly swiped the screen. Chapter 1463. Qin Sighting. I just went to take a shower. Then in less than 2 seconds another message came in. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Aha. Sure Nianj hugged her phone and rolled on the bed several times, unable to calm the joy in her heart. She looked at the 2 messages on the screen and childishly checked the words on the message. 10 words. There were 10 words on these 2 messages. He even wished her a happy birthday. Her life seemed to be complete at this moment. She resisted the urge to send him a string of aha. Ha. She even added a hee-hee before good night. It was mainly because she really could not express the joy in her heart. He should know that she was happy, right? This time, after sending it again, she thought that he would not reply. But he actually replied very quickly. Good night. This time she really couldn't sleep. Sure Nianj placed her phone aside and remembered to charge it. She then lay back on the bed and opened her eyes to look at the ceiling and the beautiful chandelier above. Her mind kept thinking about how he would reply to her message. Was he going to take a shower? He replied to her before taking a shower, and then he replied to her after taking a shower. Ah, was he wearing any clothes? Wait a minute, what was she thinking? Shirnianj raised her hand to hold her flushed face. She leaned against the pillow and took a long time to calm down. It was as though she was soaking in a honey pot. Although her phone was charging, Shirnianj still held it in her arms all night. In the middle of the night, she felt that her phone was a little warm from the charging. She put it back, turned over, and continued sleeping. She even had a dream. She dreamed that Chin Sighting came out of the bathroom with only a white towel wrapped around his lower body. He picked up his phone and saw her photo. Then, his beautiful lips curled up slightly as he sent her 2 words, "Happy birthday." How could it be such a beautiful dream? Even though she knew it was a dream, she didn't want to wake up. In the dream, she carefully observed the handsome boy and looked at his back. When he put down his phone and turned around, she was so scared that she quickly covered her eyes. However, at this moment, the dream mirror was shaken up by the noisy alarm. She suddenly opened her eyes, raised her hand, and pressed the alarm on her phone. She wanted to continue the dream, at least to finish the dream, but it was useless no matter how she closed her eyes. Shirnianj helplessly opened her eyes and picked up her phone to check the time. It was already past 6 in the morning. Every year, the day after her birthday, she would visit several relatives with her parents. Because it was still the first month of the spring festival, these days of visiting relatives would probably continue for another 2 or 3 days. 2 of his aunts lived far away in the neighboring province. Because it was a neighboring province, there was no need to fly there, so they had to get up early to drive there. She was about to put the phone back when she suddenly remembered what happened last night. She took it back and carefully opened the message page. She saw the messages from yesterday again. His words and hers were all inside, lined up as though they were chatting continuously. During the day, when she followed her parents to the neighboring province, Shirnianj would occasionally take out her phone to look at the chat records. She was even afraid that her hand would slip and accidentally delete the records, so after looking at them for a while, she carefully turned them off to prevent them from being deleted. For the next few days, any unhappy things seemed to have disappeared. As long as she took a look at the message records, she would immediately be happy. School would start in a few days. She really missed the days when she could sit by Chin Sighting's side every day. 2 days before school started, her parents had to return to the company to start their busy schedule. This time, they were not flying to America, but to the branch office in Singapore for 2 months. After that, they would continue to go to America. In short, she might not be able to find time to return before the college entrance examination. At night, as Shirnianj packed her school bag for school the day after tomorrow, she thought about how she was about to see Chin Sighting again. There was a smile on her lips, completely unaffected by her parents' departure from the country, even though he knew that because they rarely accompanied her, she was already used to the situation that they weren't in the country, and her parents going abroad wouldn't touch her switch of joy, anger, and sadness. He had never seen her so happy before school started. She had a smile on her face the whole night, even when she was eating. "What have you been smiling about all night?" Shirnianj's adorable old mother, Madame Yangjinjin, could not hold it in any longer. No matter how much she did not accompany her daughter, she still wanted to care about her current life and study before she left. Seeing her mother push open the door and enter her bedroom, the smile on Shirnianj's lips did not fade. "It's nothing. It's just that school is about to start. I'm in a good mood when I think about meeting my good friends and classmates." However, Madame Yangjinjin raised her brows and looked at her. She asked with a sensitive expression, "You've always had a good relationship with your former classmates. I've never seen you so happy when school started. Furthermore, this is the 3rd year of high school. Didn't you shout that you were pulled from heaven to hell overnight? Why are you so happy?" Shirnianj thought for a moment. "Maybe it's because I've grown up. I feel that I can save a year of study time compared to others. It's like stealing a year. I'm a little happy. Enough of you." Madame Yangjinjin sat by her bed and pressed her unpacked school bag down. She then glanced at the phone she had placed by the bed. "Recently, I've seen you hugging your phone and laughing foolishly every day. There are no calls or messages and your phone is silent. You can stare at the screen and be happy for a long time. Tell me, are you in love? Your father and I have never objected to what you should do at a certain age. Previously, when Tang Xiao chased after you, didn't we not object? We just told you to protect yourself. You've already grown up. You can decide for yourself. What else do you have to hide? It's not love. Not. Nianj realized that she could always be very calm about Tang Xiao's matter. Just as her parents had said, at which age would something happen? 18 years old was not considered puppy love. But after all, they were still students. So some feelings could only be buried under the surface. Many of her peers would not be too embarrassed to share them with others. However, in front of her parents, she never had to hide these things. But towards Qin Sighting, she suddenly realized. She actually felt a sense of shyness. She didn't know how to describe it. She felt that even if she mentioned Qin Sighting's name in front of her mother, her heart would beat faster. Chapter 1464. Seeing that her mother wanted to know so much, Nianj said directly, I like someone very, very much, but I don't think he has any intention of getting a girlfriend. Besides, his personality isn't that approachable. I just feel that sitting by his side in class is very motivating. Mrs. Yang Jinjin raised her brows. Oh, a crush. You really have to experience all the things you should experience in your adolescence. You won't miss a single one. The corner of Nianj's mouth twitched. It can't be said to be a crush. Yang Jinjin took the opportunity to laugh at her. All right, I'll still say the same thing. Whether it's feelings or interpersonal relationships, it's fine as long as you know your limits. Dad and Mom won't interfere with your freedom. Protect yourself. Don't cross the line that you shouldn't cross. We won't interfere with other matters. Nianj picked up the new notebook and placed it in her bag. She then raised her eyelids to look at her. Then don't interfere with whether I want to apply for the finance or medicine department, okay? Her mother looked at her for a while and sighed. Before we came back, your father and I had a deep discussion about this matter. You weren't by our side since you were young. We can give you too little. Our child has grown up healthy. We really shouldn't force you to do anything. You decide for yourself. Nianj nodded. Hearing this, the only boulder in her heart was relieved. The following last day of vacation was really longer than the previous 20 days. She was so bored that she followed her parents to Shida Group's company for a walk. The top floor of Shida Group was basically not accessible, but she could enter. The top floor was an office area, but there were some leisure and entertainment places on the rooftop. There were bowling and swimming. She stayed inside for an entire day and looked at the time in boredom. She wished that time could jump to tomorrow morning. School would start tomorrow. Tomorrow, in the morning, she would be able to see Qin Sighting. Nianj woke up an hour earlier than usual. Although she still had to wear her school uniform, she still specially got up to look for Auntie Xiang to bring out the ironing machine. She ironed the clean school uniform in her room and put it on. She looked at Auntie Xiang and said, Auntie Xiang, I'm sorry. When it was finally time to go out, she went downstairs to take 2 pieces of bread and left. Seeing her anxious look, her parents didn't ask anything and just let her go. After getting into Uncle Qin's car, she took a look at the time. Uncle Qin smiled when he saw her like this. As he started the engine, he said, Girls nowadays seem to have stars in their eyes when they're in love. In what way was she in love? She just liked him and worshipped him for no reason, okay? It was probably the kind of worship that poor students had for the top students. But was it that obvious? Forget it. It didn't matter if it was obvious or not. What was important was that she could see Qin Sighting today. Perhaps it was because she was looking forward to it too much that she had been worried along the way that Qin Sighting would not go to school on time today. Would he have something to do or something? Although he was in his 3rd year of high school, he would not take leave unless there was something important. Even many competitions had been postponed. After all, studying for the college entrance examination was more important. She worried the entire way. When she arrived at the school gate, she looked left and right when she got out of the car. She even glanced in the direction where she had met Qin Sighting previously, but she did not see him. With all kinds of worries in her heart, she entered the school gate and entered the classroom. As soon as she entered the classroom, she lowered her head to check her uniform. Suddenly, she saw a white figure in front of her and almost bumped into him. She raised her head abruptly and saw the person in front of her. Time seemed to have returned to the scene on the field at the beginning of the previous semester. The clean and good-looking young man in a white shirt stood in front of her. He glanced at her indifferently because she had lowered her head and almost bumped into him. The moment she met Chin Sighting's gaze, her expression changed from confusion to joy. Then, her heart that had been floating seemed to instantly fall to the ground. He had actually arrived earlier than her. When she saw his clothes, she turned to look at the others around her. "Why aren't you wearing your school uniform? Today was the first day of school. He should be wearing his school uniform." Chin Sighting was as calm as before. His gaze swept past her face, and his voice was as clear as a cold spring. "I caught an early flight from Japan and arrived at school half an hour ago. I didn't go back to get my school uniform." "Ah, he went to Japan. He wasn't in the country these days?" Then on her birthday, did he reply to her message in Japan? "Then what about your school uniform?" She paused for a moment and found a topic that would allow her to talk normally and restore her inner reason and calm. "Someone will send it over. It's almost here. I'm about to go get it." Chin Sighting glanced at the time and then at her. "You're very early." Nianj had been worried that he would not come today. She was so worried that her palms were sweating, but on the surface, she looked calm and in a good mood. "That's right. It's the first day of school. Even if you're a bad student, you have to show the attitude of a third-year student and be more positive. Besides, the early bird gets meat." Chin Sighting raised his brows coldly. "What meat? What meat? Of course it's you, this fat piece of meat." Nianj smiled but did not speak. She smiled at him and went to her seat to sit down. When she saw Chin Sighting's bag by the side, the stone in her heart finally landed. Previously, she was worried that the teacher would change everyone's seats in the new semester. She was worried that Chin Sighting would take this opportunity to sit in another seat, or ask the teacher to change her seat. However, judging from his attitude earlier in his backpack, he didn't have such plans. When Zhao Xiaoqing and the others entered the class, it was almost 7 o'clock. Everyone had not seen each other for a long time, and they had endless topics to talk about. They could discuss which boy's new hairstyle and which girl's new bangs were cut for a long time. Nianj did not participate in any of the topics. She only sat in her seat and placed the books neatly on the table. She then glanced at Chin Sighting's bag and thought for a moment. She did not rashly search through his bag again. She only tidied up the scattered books and papers on his table. Looking at his handwriting, she felt that a good-looking boy's writing would definitely be very good-looking. This sentence was the truth. When Chin Sighting returned with his school uniform, he saw the neatly arranged books and papers on the table. He then glanced at the books on her table that were arranged at the same angle. "Almighty Chin, happy new school." Nianj turned to him and smiled brightly. Chapter 1465. Seeing Chin Sighting sit down, Nianj turned to look at him and used her eyes to describe his handsome and beautiful outline. She said, "In the new semester, the teacher will rearrange the seats, right? I don't really want to change seats. Can the two of us not change?" Chin Sighting raised his brows slightly and turned to look at her. Nianj smiled at him. Can I not change seats?" He did not answer, but his gaze, which seemed to have seen through her, made her feel a little ashamed. However, she did not want to retreat. Her heart was already burning, but she remained calm on the surface. Regarding the change of seats, it was true. She had heard from Hao Xiuxia that their class would change seats every semester. However, Chin Sighting had always been sitting here. Even if he changed seats, he was still alone. Firstly, he did not like to sit with others. Secondly, no one dared to come close to him and be frozen by an iceberg all day. Even if the teacher requested to change seats, he might not be able to. Early in the morning, she went from worry to relief to joy, and then to worry again. When the form teacher, Teacher Zhao, entered the class to call the roll, he simply asked everyone about the situation during the winter vacation and asked if they had any thoughts about changing seats. Almost half of the students said that they could change seats. Whether it was men and women sitting together or friends sitting together, the teacher's idea was that those who were too close should not be together. Otherwise, it would be easy for them to chat with each other in class and affect the progress of their studies. Under the teacher's arrangements, everyone was changing seats one by one. Almost everyone was walking around the other desks with their bags and books. Shirnianj sat there motionless and did not say a word. Chin's sighting did not seem to be affected at all. Everyone else was walking around. He closed his eyes and sat quietly, pretending to sleep to pass the boring time. When Teacher Zhao realized that there was no movement from their side, he asked from the podium, Shirnianj, Chin's sighting, aren't the two of you going to change seats? In fact, Teacher Zhao was very surprised that Shirnianj could actually sit by Chin's sighting's side for a week. Now that there was a chance to change seats, with Chin's sighting's temper, he would definitely get up and find another seat to sit down. This way, it would not be good for Shirnianj to sit down again. However, neither of them stood up. Shirnianj wanted to openly say that she didn't want to change, but the teacher was looking at Chin's sighting, so it wasn't convenient for her to speak. She only smiled at the teacher and brushed it off. Nian Nian, aren't you going to trade? The class monitor happened to come over from the front. He turned back to look in Shirnianj's direction and pointed to the seat next to him with his eyes, indicating that she could sit next to him. Shirnianj shook her head. The class monitor seemed a little surprised. After all, although she had sat at Chin's sighting's place for a week, she had very little interaction with Chin's sighting. The atmosphere between them was still very cold. With Shirnianj's cheerful and lively personality, she shouldn't be very happy in such a cold atmosphere. She actually didn't plan to escape from that iceberg. I can sit here. I ranked 7th in the previous mock exam. That's not bad. I can also help you with your studies and tutor you. The class monitor placed his bag on the seat by the side, indicating that he didn't want anyone else to sit. His eyes were still looking in Shirnianj's direction, clearly insisting that she go over. The class monitor was a tall and handsome boy with glasses. He had a buzz cut, and always seemed to carry the heroic spirit of a student leader. Shirnianj had not interacted much with him. It seemed like she had only brought Hao Xiuxia to the infirmary and the hospital with him when she had a stomachache. Later on, they only interacted with each other in terms of their studies and did not contact each other in private. Seeing that the class monitor seemed to want her to go over, Shirnianj did not want to go. However, Chin's sighting's completely cold attitude made her feel a little embarrassed. Teacher Zhao was still watching from the side. He signaled her with his eyes, clearly asking her to go to the class monitor's side. After all, Shirnianj's grandfather had told him that he hoped that after Shirnianj was promoted to the 3rd year of high school, someone would help her when she faced the pressure of her studies. Last semester, Teacher Zhao had told her to go to another seat, but this child's temper was really stubborn. It had been an entire semester, and she still hadn't changed. Now she actually didn't plan to change? Seeing that Shirnianj was still sitting there firmly, Teacher Zhao looked at Chin's sighting, who had been sitting there quietly with his eyes closed. Student Chin, do you and Shirnianj plan to stay in your original position or change seats? Everyone was busy moving their books and things. Only a small number of people noticed the situation here, but they only took a glance and then went to chat happily with their new desk mates. The class was noisy, and Shirnianj's heart was also noisy. The class monitor walked over and was about to move Shirnianj's book over. Shirnianj saw that the teacher and the class monitor were planning to move her away from Chin's sighting. For a moment, she could not help but suspect if Chin's sighting had privately requested it from the teacher. In fact, Chin's sighting did not want to sit together anymore. Her heart was in a mess. She subconsciously reached under the table and gently tugged on the sleeve of the person beside her. Chin's sighting opened his eyes and turned to look at her. Shirnianj also turned to look at him. Nian Nian, give me your bag. I'll bring it over for you. The class monitor had just picked up a few of her books when he glanced at her bag on the seat and reached over. Before his hand could touch her bag, Chin's sighting's gaze finally turned to him. He coldly glanced at the class monitor. She's not changing. Teacher Zhao was still thinking about how to help Shirnianj improve the learning atmosphere in the last semester of high school. The class monitor she had arranged to go over was indeed pulling her. However, she never expected Chin Sighting to speak. The class monitor was also startled. His hand was still in midair, and did not touch her bag. At this moment, Shi Nianj quickly placed her school bag on the other side where his hand could not touch it. She subconsciously moved her body closer to Chin Sighting's side. Although her movements were very subtle, Teacher Zhao, who was standing on the podium, saw it clearly. His eyelids twitched, and at the same time, he saw that Chin Sighting did not seem to be disgusted. He understood. These young children nowadays. The Chin family and the Shi family could not afford to offend anyone. However, it was rare for Chin Sighting to accept someone by his side. Furthermore, he would not accept changing seats after a semester. Shi Nianj was so willing, so forget it. All right, Lin Su, go back to your seat. Teacher Zhao finally spoke. The class monitor responded, and then looked thoughtfully at Chin Sighting's indifferent side profile. He then looked at Shi Nianj's focused expression, and left helplessly. Chapter 1466. No words could express Shi Nianj's current feelings. This feeling filled her heart, and remained there for several days. Chin Sighting was too good. In fact, under the circumstances where the teacher and the class monitor, Lin Su, clearly wanted to change her seat, if he really didn't like her sitting by his side, he could have remained silent. But he kept her. In the next few days, Shi Nianj maintained this slightly touched emotion in her heart. When she recalled that Chin Sighting had taken the books from the class monitor's hands and placed them on her desk, she felt full of energy. She had to study hard. She couldn't be left behind by the top student. For the next few days, when she slept, she would hold her phone and look at the screen, constantly calling Chin Sighting's name in her heart. Although he did not send her any more text messages, just these chat records were enough for her to savor for several days. It had been 3 or 4 days since school started. These 3 or 4 days were peaceful, as though the storm of changing seats had finally passed. Many of the students who had changed seats had officially entered the state of preparing for the college entrance examination. Hao Xiuxia and Zhao Xiaoqing did not change seats either. The two of them seemed to have sat together in the first year of high school. Later they changed seats and changed back last semester. This time, they did not change seats, and the teacher did not say anything. After all, they were both students in the last 2 rows. Her parents had already gone abroad again. Shi Nianj returned to Lishui Villa as usual. When Auntie Xiang and Uncle Qin sent her here, they prepared a lot of delicious food for her. The next morning, Shi Nianj brought the chocolates that Auntie Xiang had brought her to school. The chocolates were for Zhao Xiaoqing and Hao Xiuxia. There was also a box of fruit that she had personally cut in the morning. She placed it in a fresh-keeping box and planned to give it to Chin Sighting. She didn't know why she always liked to bring gifts or food for her good friends. In fact, they weren't expensive things, but she always felt that she couldn't finish them alone. It would be a pity to leave so many delicious food in Lishui Villa for more than 2 days. She might as well eat with her friends. She sat in the classroom for half an hour in the morning. As expected, Chin Sighting came to school at about the same time as usual. Seeing him unhurriedly enter from the door and sit by her side with his shoulder bag, Shi Nianj recalled what her parents had said to her before they went abroad. While they were young, everyone was still very simple. If they liked him, they could fight for it. Don't miss it, and don't leave any regrets for yourself. Thus, she looked at him with a pair of starry eyes. Chin Sighting also glanced at her. He was expressionless, but for some reason, Shi Nianj felt that he seemed to be in a good mood today. His expression was also relatively peaceful. Almighty Chin. Shi Nianj called her softly. Good morning. She thought that Chin Sighting would not respond, or that he would just give a faint in like usual. Unexpectedly, he opened his mouth and calmly said, Good morning. Shi Nianj's heart melted at this moment. She quickly lowered her head and pretended to check last night's homework. Her heart was beating so fast that she could only think of a way to calm herself down. Chin Sighting greeted her good morning. He had said happy birthday and good morning. She was fine. Very good. Very good. Although they did not change seats, everyone had changed seats this time. Therefore, Her and Chin Sighting's seats were moved from the row by the window to the row by the other wall and door. Behind them was Hao Xiuxia's side, which was the back door of the class. It was also the position where the teacher often stood outside to launch a surprise attack. This new position had a good line of sight. At the very least, there was no need to draw the curtains to block the blinding sunlight. There was a high wall next to her. When she was tired, she could lean against it for a while. When she sat here, Shi Nianzhi took the initiative to ask to sit against the wall. Chin Sighting agreed. He only changed his left and right seats with her. Everything else remained the same. Shi Nianzhi was actually a little scheming. This was because every time she was about to go out after class, she could talk to Chin Sighting. For example, "Almighty Chin, I'm going out for a while. I'm back. I'm going out to buy water. I'm going to get something from the teacher." As he was sitting outside, she had to tell him if she wanted to go out from her seat. This way, there would be more space for communication. Right now he would more or less respond, even if it was just a "in." After another half a month, because Shi Nianzhi remembered the time Chin Sighting would arrive at school, she kept the time and waited outside the school gates. When she saw that he was indeed walking over from that path, she immediately walked quickly toward him. "Good morning." Shi Nianzhi usually wore her school uniform in a well-behaved manner. In the entire third year of high school, Shi Nianzhi was the only girl with a particularly good family background. However, unlike other girls, she did not find opportunities to put on makeup and do her hair from time to time, or wear all kinds of strange clothes during weekend tutoring. She wore her school uniform from Monday to Friday. She had 3 sets, and she washed and changed them back and forth. On weekends, she wore very ordinary clothes, and most of them were student clothes. She looked clean, and she never wore any luxuries that matched her family background. After so long, the only change in her body was that she had changed to a new phone. But it was not the especially expensive one. Instead, it was a white and delicate phone with comprehensive functions. Chapter 1467. Chin Sighting glanced at her. "You don't live in this direction. How do you always bump into me?" Shi Nianzhi choked. Yes, the Shi family and the Lishui villa she was currently living in were on the right. This morning, she had specially waited for him under the tree on the middle road. "How do you know which direction I live in?" "Every day, when I enter and exit the school gate, I'll occasionally see where you get off the car." "So you specially watched me get into the car? Did you see which direction I went back in?" Shi Nianzhi's eyes lit up. Chin Sighting slowly answered. "I saw it once. Just once." "You're sure that I'm not in this direction just once?" Shi Nianzhi said as she looked at him with a meaningful smile. This time, he simply ignored her and walked in calmly. In the next few days, Shi Nianzhi simply waited for him under the tree on the middle road outside the school gate every day. Anyway, she said that she was passing by, and he knew that she was just spouting nonsense. He did not expose her. It was quite good to enter the school gate peacefully, hee. It was almost April in High City. It was cold in spring and freezing in autumn. Spring was the peak period for influenza. Many students in school had caught a cold and fell sick. However, because they were preparing for the college entrance examination, some people simply went to school with an 4 drip. Shi Nianzhi thought that her body's resistance had always been good, but in the end, she was unfortunately defeated by the illness. It wasn't easy for her to endure another weekend without Chin Sighting. On Monday morning, she was about to wait for him under the tree outside the school gate as usual. But she really couldn't get out of bed. Afraid that she would be late, she could only call Uncle Chin. Uncle Chin usually wasn't at the Shi family's side. His house was nearby, and he drove for 5 minutes to Lishui Villa. Shi Nianzhi struggled to get up from the bed to wash up. She felt dizzy and could not hold on any longer. But the teacher had said that she should not take leave if she could. Since everyone had endured it, she would not be so delicate. At most, she would not attend morning exercises and physical education classes during the day. She would just lie in the classroom. Uncle Chin saw that her expression was too ugly and asked her if she wanted to take a day off. She didn't agree. After packing up, she got into the car. In fact, this place was only 10 minutes away from the school. Uncle Chin handed her the thermos cup and asked her to drink more water. When Shirnianj took it, she deliberately avoided his hand, afraid that Uncle Chin would find out that she was having a fever. She had just woken up. Although she had a fever, it could not be seen on her face. She could only see that she was a little haggard. She sat in the car with her eyes closed all the way until the car stopped outside the school gate. Uncle Chin turned around to look at her, and saw that her cheeks were already showing signs of redness. She sat in the back seat dispiritedly, and leaned her head against the window. She was sleeping soundly. Uncle Chin reached out and gently touched her forehead. He immediately frowned. This child, she didn't even say anything when she had such a high fever. He saw that many students had already entered the school gate, but Shirnianj had been strangely coming to school early recently. Uncle Chin glanced at the time. There were still about 20 minutes before she went to study on time in the morning. He quickly took out a clean towel from the spare box in the car and gently covered her. Seeing that she was sleeping soundly due to the high fever and had not woken up, he parked the car and went to the pharmacy to buy medicine. However, Shirnianj woke up a few minutes after Uncle Chin got out of the car. When she opened her eyes, she was a little confused. She raised her hand and touched her surroundings. She wanted to sit up properly and get out of the car. But the moment her head left the window and her body moved, it was as though there was a large pool of water spinning in her mind. It made her dizzy and she even felt like vomiting. At that moment, she leaned back and closed her eyes, not daring to move. Uncle Chin. Her voice was slightly hoarse as she leaned against the car. She didn't know if Uncle Chin was sitting in the driver's seat. She hummed in discomfort. Uncle Chin, help me go, under the tree in front. Her voice became softer and softer. In the end, she didn't know what she was saying. She raised her hand and weakly put it down. She leaned her head against the window. She felt that the window was very cold. Sticking her head here would make her feel much more comfortable. Uncle Chin went to buy antipyretics and returned. As he walked, he called the Shir family's helper. Auntie Xiang had returned to her hometown for the past few days and wasn't in High City. She could only find someone Shirnianj trusted and was familiar with to take care of her. Otherwise, she would be worried if she went to school like this. She had to find someone to accompany her in Lishui Villa. Just as he was about to return to the car, Uncle Chin suddenly noticed that there seemed to be someone standing under the tree in front of him. He looked like a young man, but he only hurriedly passed by to take a look before walking over. He quickly returned to the car to give the Shir family's little ancestor some antipyretics. Shirnianj was already in a daze from the fever in the car. She could vaguely hear the sound of the car door opening. Uncle Chin came over and said that he wanted her to take the antipyretics. She took it and continued to lean against the car door. Why didn't you say so? If I had known that you were so sick when we were in the villa, I wouldn't have brought you to school. Uncle Chin sighed. You've taken the antipyretics. I'll take you to the hospital. No need. Shirnianj spoke hoarsely, but her head was still aching. She closed her eyes and asked hoarsely, What time is it now? 6:45. Shirnianj frowned. Almost every day, she met Chin sighting under the tree from 6:50 to 7 o'clock a.m. She had been coincidentally meeting him every morning for more than a week. If she did not appear today, would he wait for her? Or would he directly enter school without feeling anything? What should she do? Uncle Chin, I don't want to go to the hospital. I want to get out of the car. Shirnianj felt uncomfortable and wronged. She was usually very open-minded and never felt wronged. However, perhaps because her body was too uncomfortable, she really felt sad and wronged. She had already arrived at school. She was not far from that tree. She was not late. But what should she do? She could not get out of the car at all. As long as she moved slightly, she would feel dizzy and nauseous. She did not dare to move at all. However, would Chin sighting not take it seriously at all? If he did not see her appear, he would directly enter without even asking her. Why are you getting out of the car? There's a small hospital nearby, right? Last time, you said that you accompanied your classmate there. You have to go and take a look at your fever. The flu has been very serious recently. If you only take antipyretics, it might not be of much use. Go and take a look first. No, I want to get out of the car. You have to be obedient. Uncle Chin saw that she was suddenly so willful and immediately used some strength. Although he was the Sher family's chauffeur, he had watched Sher Nianj grow up. He definitely could not allow her to enter school sick. Sher Nianj felt extremely wronged. Sher Nianj was extremely aggrieved. She heard him close the car door and prepare to drive. She quickly sat up in her seat and turned to look out of the car window. Recently, the higher-ups have been very strict. There has been an earthquake in the online literature circle. Almost all the novels are being blocked or changed. There are many situations where the first chapters are messed up. Everyone can just delete the book from the bookshelf and collect it again. At present, there are still many chapters in my book that have been blocked. I'll slowly change them myself. Chapter 1468. Sher Nianj immediately saw Qin's sighting under the tree. However, he was standing there looking at his phone. She didn't know if it was because his phone suddenly rang when he walked there, so he stood there to take a look, or because he realized that she hadn't arrived, so he stood there waiting for her. But at least he was really there. Uncle Qin. Afraid that this was just an illusion, Sher Nianj quickly said, "Help me, do me a favor. Let's go to the hospital first. We'll talk about the rest after your fever subsides." With that, Uncle Qin was about to drive away. "No, I can go to the hospital. Help me tell the boy standing under the tree that I'm taking leave today. There's no need to tell him that I'm sick. Just tell him that I have something to do at the last minute, and ask him to help me keep the class notes. I'll come back tomorrow." Sher Nianj felt that it was difficult for her to say such a long string of words. After speaking, she closed her eyes to rest for a while. Uncle Qin turned to look in the direction she was referring to. He thought to himself that when he passed by earlier, that good-looking young man seemed to be standing there. Why hadn't he left yet? He turned to look at Sher Nianj and seemed to have thought of something. "Did you make an appointment with him here?" "It's not really an appointment." Sher Nianj was not in the mood to explain. She just wanted to tell Qin's sighting before he entered the school gates. But she did not want to say that she was sick. Right now, her mind was very confused. She subconsciously felt that he might be waiting for her, and told him not to wait any longer. However, it wasn't easy for him to wait for her. She really wanted to see him. She felt so wronged. Her tears were about to fall. She pressed her face against the window and said weakly and helplessly in a hoarse voice, "Uncle Qin, please help me, go and tell him." Seeing her anxious look, Uncle Qin sighed. "All right, wait." With that, he got out of the car. Uncle Qin looked at the time again, and remembered the time Sher Nianj had just taken the fever medicine in case the doctor asked about it. He then walked all the way to the tree, and saw that the young man had shifted his gaze away from his phone. He walked over. "Hello, I'm the Sher family's chauffeur." Qin sighting put down his phone and looked at him. "Our young mistress has something to do today. She might have to take a day off to rest. She asked me to tell you not to wait for her. Also, please help me make a copy of her class notes. She'll get it when she comes to school tomorrow." After Uncle Qin finished speaking, he felt that his mission was over. He turned around and left. Qin sighting did not speak at first. Then, he looked in the direction Uncle Qin had gone, and the car parked not far away. He said, "There are only 100 days left before the college entrance examination. Why did she apply for leave?" Uncle Qin paused for a moment. Although he remembered that this young man seemed to be from the Qin family, Sher Nianj was currently having a high fever. From his tone, it seemed as though it was unreasonable for him to ask for leave. He turned back unhappily and said, "She doesn't want to ask for leave, but who doesn't have urgent matters all year round?" "She's in the car?" Qin sighting had already walked over. There was no extra expression on his face, but his voice was indifferent and firm. Uncle Qin was stunned. "How did you know?" Hearing his tacit agreement, Qin sighting did not answer. Instead, he looked at the car in front of him. If she wasn't in that car, how could she have known that he would be standing here waiting for her? Qin sighting walked toward the car. Uncle Qin quickly went forward in surprise. "I think it's close to your morning self-study time. You should enter the school." "Is she sick?" Qin sighting completely ignored his words and changed the topic. Uncle Qin paused for a moment before saying, "It's probably the flu. She's having a high fever." "Open the car door. Let me take a look." It was an indifferent and commanding tone. He was not discussing with him. Perhaps because the person in front of him was from the Chin family, Uncle Chin did not feel that there was anything wrong with his tone. However, Nianj had just told him not to let him know that she was sick. Now not only did he say it, but Chin Sighting also wanted to see her. If he opened the car door, Nianj would probably be very angry. She was already very sick. If I remember correctly, you're the little young master of the Chin family. After all, you're the young master of one of the 4 big families in High City. It's not good for me to offend you, but our miss doesn't want to see anyone right now. The little girl's condition isn't very good when she's sick, so it's understandable that she doesn't want to see anyone. You should enter the school. She originally wanted to force herself to come to school, but now that she's having a fever, she's a little dazed. I'll send her to the hospital right away. Uncle Chin's words were neither servile nor overbearing. Even though he was the young master of the Chin family, the Shi family was not a small character. Even if there was some ambiguous feelings between these young people, as an elder, he could not let Shi Nianj go when she was sick. Uncle Chin's words were neither servile nor overbearing. However, Chin Sighting remained standing on the spot. His gaze was indifferent and cold. I'll just take a look at her. After confirming that there's nothing wrong, I'll leave. Seeing Chin Sighting's seemingly indifferent but cold attitude, Uncle Chin hesitated for a moment. He recalled how Shi Nianj had been in a hurry to get out of the car and raise her head to look out the window. Perhaps she really liked this kid. Or perhaps she just wanted to take a look at him to be at ease. It did not seem good for him to stop her. After hesitating for a moment, Uncle Chin said, "Just you wait." With that, Uncle Chin turned to open the car door at the back. He looked at Shi Nianj, who was leaning against the car door. Her face was getting redder and redder because of the fever. She did not move. "Nian Nian." There was no response. "Miss." There was still no response. Uncle Chin was worried that something had happened to her because her fever was too serious. He quickly let go of the car door and leaned close to touch her forehead. With this touch, he frowned even more. He turned around and saw that Chin Sighting had already walked over. "The fever is too serious. I called twice, but there's no reaction. We have to go to the hospital." Chin Sighting was outside the car door. He leaned down slightly and saw Shi Nianj, who was sitting motionless in the car. Her neck was already red, but there was no reaction. Uncle Chin was about to close the car door and drive to the hospital. However, at this moment, Chin Sighting raised his hand and pressed it against the car door, stopping him from closing it. The hospital opposite the school is only a small clinic. There are too many unknown causes for a high fever. Don't go to a small hospital. Go straight to the fever clinic and emergency department of the city hospital. "Ah, but the city hospital is too far from here. Nian Nian is behind. I'll drive. You take care of her from the back." His tone was still cold and commanding. Uncle Chin didn't know what he was thinking. An adult in his 40s was actually stunned by the aura of a child who wasn't even 20 years old. He subconsciously handed the electronic car key to him. Chin Sighting took the car key and threw his black shoulder bag into the car. He then signaled for Uncle Chin to get in the car and sit in the back to support Shi Nianj. He walked around the car, opened the door on the driver's side and sat in. Chapter 1469. At this moment, Shi Nianj was completely unconscious, but she was not completely unconscious. Uncle Chin supported her from behind so that she could sit steadily. However, although Chin Sighting was young, his driving skills were not bad. He was fast and stable. When the lights changed at the intersection, he would not brake too quickly. Shi Nianj basically did not need to be supported, and she would not fall from her seat. However, Uncle Chin was still worried. He helped her buckle her seatbelt. After all, Shi Nianj was a young girl. It was not convenient for Uncle Chin to hold her with his hands. He could only occasionally hold her shoulders and head. Along the way, Chin Sighting did not speak. Uncle Chin glanced at the time and asked, "Don't you need to go to class?" "It's fine." Chin Sighting saw that there was a traffic jam ahead due to the morning rush hour. He decisively turned the car into a small road. There were quite a few cars on this road, and the road in the middle was very narrow. Even Uncle Chin, who had been driving for decades, had to drive carefully. However, Chin Sighting did not slow down at all and drove very steadily. After successfully driving past, he drove to the main road that was not blocked for the time being, and successfully drove toward the road closest to the hospital. Uncle Chin turned to look at Shi Nianj, who was still sleeping with her head lowered. I just gave her some fever medicine, but the medicine probably hasn't taken effect yet. It's still so hot. I don't know how long she had a fever last night. She only called me in the morning, Uncle Chin said as he sighed. She rarely returns to the Shi family? At this moment, Chin Sighting stopped the car at an intersection where the lights had changed. He glanced back through the rearview mirror and saw Shi Nianj pressing her forehead against the door in pain and frowning. Yes, Nian Nian has been very independent since she was young. Now that her parents are not in the country, she found a place near the school and has been living by herself. Uncle Chin sighed. Thankfully, she called me in the morning and asked me to pick her up. Otherwise, if she maintained this state and stayed at home with a high fever for an entire day, who knows what would have happened? Chin Sighting glanced at Shi Nianj in the rearview mirror again. At this moment, the lights in front turned from red to green, and he drove the car forward again. When they arrived at the hospital, Uncle Chin quickly unbuckled her seatbelt and helped her out of the car. Chin Sighting got out of the car and was about to go in to help register when Uncle Chin suddenly recalled something. Wait a minute. I'll go back to the car to get something. Help Nian Nian in first. As he spoke, he quickly helped Shi Nianj to Chin Sighting. When Chin Sighting reached out to help her, Uncle Chin quickly went to the car to take out the blanket. He also took out his wallet and ID card. Right now, he was equivalent to half of Shi Nianj's elder. If her illness was too serious, he would have to handle any procedures. He had to bring all of these with him. Shi Nianj's body was trembling from the fever. She could not stand at all. Her legs were weak. After being supported by Chin Sighting for less than a minute, her entire body fell down softly. However, the moment she almost fell, a strong arm grabbed her from behind and pressed her into his arms. Chin Sighting did not need to touch her forehead. Just by touching her back through her clothes, he knew how serious her fever was. All right, let's go in. Uncle Chin walked over with something and rushed forward to drape a thin blanket over Shi Nianj. She's still trembling. Wrap her with a blanket. Chin Sighting did not say anything. He only raised his hand to take it and wrapped it around her. When he saw that she could not walk at all and was about to stagger and fall after taking 2 steps, Uncle Chin quickly came over and said, "Let me do it. I'll send her in." "Thank you, young Master Chin. Go back to class." Chin Sighting did not reply. He reached down and carried Shi Nianj horizontally. He turned around and quickly walked to the main entrance of the hospital's fever clinic. Uncle Chin watched by the side and opened his mouth. He wanted to say something, but he felt that it was not appropriate for his girl to be suddenly carried. But at this time, forget it. By the time Uncle Chin rushed over after registering, Shi Nianj was already sitting on the fever clinic bed. She was half conscious as she sat there. Her upper body was almost leaning into Chin Sighting's arms by the bed. Her hot hands kept gripping the hem of his clothes, and she did not know that there were wrinkles. Her brows were furrowed and she hummed twice. She felt very uncomfortable. "How is it?" Uncle Chin came in and saw her in this state. He guessed that she did not even know who she was leaning on. "The doctor has written a test form. Let's go for a blood test first. Tell the doctor what time she took the fever medicine. I'll send her for a blood test first." After Chin Sighting finished speaking, he helped Shi Nianj up again. After all, this was the hospital. It was not good to carry her all the way. Seeing that she had woken up slightly, he whispered into her ear, "Can you walk?" Shi Nianj vaguely felt that the voice was somewhat familiar. It sounded like Chin Sighting, but she was not sure. She even felt that it was impossible, but it was too uncomfortable. She could not care too much. When her feet landed on the ground, although her legs were a little weak and her head was still spinning, she still nodded. Chin Sighting helped her out. The place where the blood test was conducted was less than 100 meters away from the clinic. In the second half of the journey, she walked with some difficulty. Her head was almost leaning in his arms. Although it looked like she was being supported, in fact, she did not use any strength. She was being carried away. When the doctor came to draw blood, he saw that it was a little girl in school uniform. The clean young man beside her who had been taking care of her, supporting her, and even carrying her should be a student of the same age. Such a good-looking young couple really made the doctors and aunties, who were already past their teenage years, feel both tender and envious. Seeing that the girl was still in a daze after her blood was drawn, the good-looking and tall boy almost carried her away. Aya, the love of school days was really beautiful. The doctors and aunties covered their faces in envy. While waiting for the test results, Uncle Chin went to buy some breakfast. Shirnianj did not eat much in the morning. Right now, she was still lying in the lounge waiting for her fever to subside. In a daze, Uncle Chin used a straw to feed her the soy milk cup. She only took 2 sips before vomiting. Thankfully, she only vomited to the side and did not stain her body. Uncle Chin sighed, his heart aching and anxious. Chin Sighting did not return to school. Instead, he told the teacher that he was accompanying Shirnianj in the hospital, and did not hide anything. The form teacher was a little absent-minded after hanging up the phone. Shirnianj had a high fever. Chin Sighting sent her to the hospital. Chapter 1470. When the blood test results came out, Shirnianj's fever finally subsided a little, but it had not completely subsided. When she first came to the hospital in the morning, her temperature was 39.4 degrees Celsius. It was already 10 a.m., and her temperature was 38.6 degrees Celsius. She was still running a high fever, but at least she wouldn't vomit after drinking some water. She lay in the hospital's lounge. As her temperature had dropped, she felt more comfortable, and could finally sleep comfortably. Chin Sighting took the test results to the outpatient clinic, and returned not long after. Seeing that she was still sleeping, he placed the results by the side. "How is it? What did the doctor say? Is it the flu or something?" "It's a cold, but it's already in the realm of influenza B. She'll have a high fever for a few days." After speaking, Chin Sighting looked at the time. "Has she eaten?" "Not yet. She can eat the breakfast I bought for her in the morning. I fed her some soy milk and she vomited. However, she drank a few mouthfuls of water before falling asleep. It's okay. She didn't vomit. Think of a way to make her eat. Even if she vomits, she has to eat. She just took her medicine in the morning. She has to continue taking her medicine later. She can't go on an empty stomach," Chin Sighting said as he walked to the bed. The doctor said that there's no need to stay in the hospital for observation. Recently, there have been a lot of influenza viruses in the hospital. It's easier for her to be infected with influenza B here. Let her go back to rest, drink more water, and cool down physically. After the fever completely subsides, she'll be fine. Chin Sighting spoke and walked to the bed to look at Shirnianj, who was still sleeping. "All right, I'll send her back later," Uncle Chin said as he looked at the time thoughtfully. Chin Sighting glanced at him. "Did you take care of her after you went back?" "I should stay and take care of her. But I have something to do in the afternoon. The auntie who usually follows her closest has returned to her hometown. She'll only return to High City next week. As for the Sher family, I told them not to come after I sent her to the hospital. From the looks of it, I still have to call someone over. I'll call them over now." Chin Sighting glanced at Shirnianj, who was still sleeping. However, Shirnianj's home is indeed too far away. They'll probably arrive later. "I'll stay," Chin Sighting said. Uncle Chin looked at him in surprise. "You?" Chin Sighting looked up at him. "Is there a problem?" Of course there was a problem. Although you're the young master of the Chin family, you're still a man and a woman. Our Nian Nian is so beautiful, and the relationship between the two of you is so unclear. How could I leave you alone to take care of her?" Uncle Chin didn't dare to say this. He only said, "Send her back first." "Okay, I'll drive." Chin Sighting stood up and left. When Shirnianj was helped up again, she finally came back to her senses. Chin Sighting was no longer in the lounge. She turned to look at Uncle Chin, and was stunned for a moment before saying, "Uncle Chin, why am I not in school? You still want to go to school with such a high fever?" Do you want to be carried to the hospital by your classmates and teachers? Uncle Chin glared at her. Alright, the doctor has already taken a look. It's just a viral cold, but if you don't pay attention, it might turn into influenza B. That will be even more uncomfortable, and won't recover so quickly. I'll send you back to rest first. After you go back, eat something, take some medicine, and then lie down and sleep well. Don't go to school for the next 2 days. How could she not go to school? Nianj did not answer, and was helped out of the lounge. When she was helped to the car, she opened the car door and sat in. She looked up and saw Chin sitting in the driver's seat. She was stunned for a moment, and her eyes were in a daze for a moment. Chin sighting. Previously, when she was in a daze, she seemed to feel that he was by her side. At that time, she thought she was dreaming or confused from the fever. But he was really here? Why was he here? Did he and Uncle Chin send her to the hospital together? All right, don't be in a daze. Your good classmate came to the hospital without even attending class. Let's send you back first. Uncle Chin patted her shoulder from behind. Nianj finally returned to her senses. Only then did Nianj return to her senses. She quickly sat in the car and sat by the driver's seat. She then poked her head out to look at the person sitting in front of her. It's really you? Chin sighting glanced at her through the rearview mirror and did not answer. Seatbelt. In fact, it didn't matter much even if she didn't wear a seatbelt when sitting in the back. However, her stamina wasn't good right now. If she suddenly braked, she might hit the front. Nianj immediately buckled her seatbelt obediently. She didn't dare to ask any more questions. As though she was afraid that this beautiful dream would be shattered, she didn't even speak. She just sat there, looking at Chin sighting in front of her, and then turning to look out of the car window. Even though her head still hurt, her heart felt sweet. She didn't know if it was because of the fever or her mood, but she felt that her feet were floating. Uncle Chin told him the location of Lishui Villa, and Chin sighting drove the car over. It turned out that Chin sighting knew how to drive. Usually, he didn't take the family car or drive. He walked to school. It seemed like he lived very close to the school. She just didn't know which one was closer compared to Lishui Villa. In fact, it took more than 10 minutes to drive from Lishui Villa to the school. He walked to school, so he was probably closer than her. Along the way, because of her body, Nianj didn't have the strength to speak, even though she was very excited. She just sat in the back and looked at Chin sighting from time to time. With Uncle Chin in the car, she was indeed too embarrassed to chat with Chin sighting. However, she felt satisfied just looking at his back view from behind. He would actually accompany her to the hospital. Earlier, she was a little upset that she had delayed his lessons because she was sick, but this frustration was dispelled by her joy and excitement. Nianj sat in the back, the smile on her lips never disappearing. Uncle Chin sat by the side and saw everything clearly. He did not say much. After the car arrived at Lishui Villa, he helped her out of the car. So now, Chin sighting should know where she usually lived and had been to her house. Nianj saw Chin sighting help take out her bag from the car and turned back to look at him. Chin sighting returned the electronic car key to Uncle Chin and did not leave immediately. Instead, he walked in with them. Chin sighting actually entered her house? Nianj's heart was about to jump out. Her head hurt, but in an instant, she carefully recalled if she had thrown any fruit peels on the ground when she ate the fruits at home last night. Did she confiscate any clothes on the sofa? Was there anything else that she had not packed? If the house was too messy, wouldn't it be embarrassing? Uncle Chin, I'm still alive, right? Nianj looked at Chin sighting's figure walking in front of her. As Uncle Chin was supporting her, she leaned close to him and asked softly. Uncle Chin glanced at her strangely. What inauspicious words are you talking about? Isn't it just a fever? That's right. I feel like I might have lost my mind from the fever. This was too unreal. Chapter 1471. After entering the house, Nianj quickly walked away from Uncle Chin and went behind Chin sighting. Sit down first. I'll go get some. Go back to your room to rest. Before she could finish speaking, Chin sighting stopped in his tracks and turned back to look at her. Nianj instinctively felt that since this was Chin sighting's first time at her house, she should pour some water or take out some food, or drink for him to sit down and rest. However, it was clear that in his eyes, she was only a patient and could not do anything. Nian Nian, go back to your room and lie down first. Uncle Qin gave her a look. In fact, there was another meaning in his gaze. Along the way, Uncle Qin realized that Shirnianj seemed to be very warm to Qin sighting. There was always a feeling that his girl liked someone else more. But the other party was cold and did not respond much. He still wanted her to take advantage of her illness to rest and calm down. Shirnianj's head was indeed hurting, but she could not show off now. Seeing that Qin sighting did not treat her as an outsider and did not need her to do anything, she still found some consciousness of being sick and went upstairs to her room. However, after returning to her room, she tossed and turned but could not fall asleep. Even though her head hurt, she still could not fall asleep. After about 10 minutes, Uncle Qin knocked on the door and came in. Seeing that she was still awake, he came over and brought over a cup of hot water and antipyretic medicine. It's been a few hours since you took the medicine. You can take it again. Then drink this cup of water. Shirnianj got up and took the medicine. She then turned to look out the door. After swallowing the medicine, she asked, "Where's Qin sighting?" "He's downstairs. Don't worry, he hasn't left. Just sleep in peace." Uncle Qin took the cup from her and looked at the time. He then said, "But I have to leave in half an hour. The child has something to do at school this afternoon. The child's mother doesn't have time to go. I have to go over. Can you stay at home?" "I'll just sleep." "What's wrong with that? Go do whatever you need to do." Shirnianj gently waved her hand. However, she suddenly remembered that Qin sighting was still here. Before she could ask, Uncle Qin said, "I've called the Shi family. Your Auntie Lu and Auntie Sue will come to take care of you later. However, it'll take at least an hour for them to rush over. I'll let Qin company stay here with you for a while. When they arrive, I'll let him go back." In other words, there would be time alone with Qin sighting later? All right. Shirnianj smiled. Seeing her smile, Uncle Qin knew what she was thinking. He smiled helplessly and got up to leave. At the thought that she would have time alone with Qin sighting later, Shirnianj could not fall asleep. She tossed and turned on the bed for a long time and picked up the thermometer to measure the temperature. It was 38 degrees, and she did not feel as uncomfortable as in the morning. When she suddenly heard the sound of a car, she quickly got up from the bed and went to the window to see Uncle Qin's car drive away. Auntie Lu and Auntie Sue, who were rushing over from the Shi family, called at this moment. They said that there was a traffic jam on the way, and it would take at least half an hour for them to arrive. "All right, I'm fine. I don't have a high fever like I did in the morning. I feel much better." Situ say. Speak. Tang I, he Qin Li he sighting comma Qing I. Sighting. When he heard her talking on the phone, he turned around and glanced at her, who was standing on the stairs. "Uncle Qin asked you to stay here with me?" She hung up the phone and walked down. "N," Qin sighting answered. When he saw that she had come down, he asked, "Why aren't you sleeping in your room?" "I slept well last night, and I slept for so long in the hospital in the morning. Even if I have a headache, I can't sleep." As she spoke, she looked out the window. "What are you looking at?" "Nothing." Qin sighting saw that her expression was still ugly. He walked over and stood in front of her for a while, lowering his eyes to look at her. The person she liked the most was standing in front of her, with one hand in his trouser pocket, looking down at her. They were standing very close to each other, so close that if she raised her head slightly, their breaths would be intertwined. She could clearly smell the scent on his body. It was a clean and refreshing mint scent, with a hint of detergent softener. It was clear and refreshing with a hint of fragrance. "What's the temperature now?" he asked. "I took a look just now. 38 degrees, she answered obediently. "N, you don't want to sleep?" "I can't sleep. With you here, I can't sleep. It's rare for us to be alone. When the two Shi family's aunties come over, we won't have such a chance. She definitely wouldn't use such a rare time to sleep." "All right, sit down first." As Qin sighting spoke, he raised his hand and was about to touch her forehead. However, before he could touch her, he suddenly saw her look up with stars in her eyes. He paused and retracted his hand, Cherniange turned around and sat on the sofa. Then, like an obedient primary school student, she turned to look at him, waiting for his next order. Seeing her expression, Qin Siding did not say anything. He only looked at her haggard appearance. Did you vomit everything you ate this morning? Can you still eat now? I don't know. I don't feel hungry right now. I don't have an appetite. I'll go get some food. Why don't you try some? Cherniange's expression changed from obedient to surprised. Do you want to cook? Actually, what she wanted to ask was, do you actually know how to cook? However, she felt that it wasn't good to say these words. Qin Siding didn't seem like someone who would casually boast. If he said he knew how to cook, he probably knew how to cook. In fact, the two aunties from the Sher family came to take care of her, and specially came to cook for her. However, compared to these, she naturally wanted to eat Qin Siding's cooking. Qin Siding did not answer. He only raised his brows, asking her if she wanted to eat or not. Eat, eat, eat. I'll eat whatever you cook. He glanced at her again and snorted. He did not answer her obviously infatuated words, and turned to look for the ingredients in her kitchen. Cherniange rushed to follow closely. Standing outside the kitchen door, she saw that he had already gone in to open the refrigerator. She stuck her head out and said, "There are fruits and various vegetables in the refrigerator. They were all prepared by Auntie Xiang when she came over. As this villa is a little far from the supermarket, there seems to be a lot of frozen things. Otherwise, there's no need to go through too much trouble." Chapter 1472. Not to mention glutinous rice balls or frozen dumplings, even if it was a cup of water that Almighty Qin had personally boiled for her, she could drink it like it was immortal water. After looking at the ingredients in the fridge, Qin Siding said, "It's best to eat something that's easy to digest during a fever. Glutinous rice balls are not easy to digest." "Oh, then anything is fine. Porridge is fine, noodles are fine too. How about noodles? There might be some noodles in the cupboard." Cherniange pointed in the direction of the cupboard. In fact, she would also cook some food. After all, she was used to being independent since she was young. However, she did not cook much. However, she would notice what ingredients were at home when she went into the kitchen to pour water. With her current condition, although she should drink some nutritious food to nourish her body, she would probably vomit out some oily meat soup. The doctor had told her that it was best not to eat eggs, beef, or seafood for a few hours after taking the fever medicine. After Qin Siding found the noodles, he put them in the water to cook. He did not say, and she did not ask. She just felt that no matter what he made, she would definitely be able to eat it. Cherniange could not stand any longer. She had a fever and had yet to eat anything. Her legs were still weak. She turned around and walked back to the sofa to wait. She leaned against the sofa and sat for a while. Not long after, she smelled a fragrance. When Qin Siding brought out 2 bowls of noodles, she poked her head into the bowl and saw that it was 2 bowls of golden and alluring onion oil noodles. "Come and eat." Qin Siding placed the noodles on the dining table by the kitchen. "I'll get the chopsticks." Chernian stood up and rushed to prepare the cutlery. "There's no need. I saw the chopsticks on it. I'll take them. Sit down." Qin Siding did not look at her, and had already entered the kitchen. Cherniange was so happy that she could not hide the smile on her lips. She quickly sat down at the dining table. Qin Siding came over and handed her the chopsticks. She took it and was too embarrassed to keep staring at him. She directly focused her attention on the onion oil noodles in front of her. After taking a bite, the smile on her lips widened. "You still have to get used to it." Qin Siding saw her expression and asked calmly, "It's delicious. Of course I'm used to it." It was so delicious that she was almost moved. He knew that she had a cold and fever, and could not eat many things. Otherwise, it would affect the efficacy of the fever medicine. So he only made the simplest scallion oil noodles without any messy things. He also knew that she did not have much taste in her mouth right now. If she ate too light soup, she would definitely not be able to eat it, and it would be easy for her to vomit. So he simply made this more appetizing scallion oil noodles. However, he did not put much oil in it. It looked faintly golden, and when it entered the mouth, It was also very fragrant. It was not too oily or salty at all. In short, it was extremely delicious. She would never throw up again with this bowl of noodles. Seeing that she liked it, Chin Sighting picked up his chopsticks. Without asking, she guessed that he probably did not eat much in the morning, so he had only made 2 bowls. When she was halfway through eating, Nianj felt that she was, after all, the owner of this house. Chin Sighting was a guest, but she still needed him to cook for her. She put down her chopsticks awkwardly and said, "If I had known that it would be so serious this morning, I would have rested at home. If I hadn't gone to school, you probably wouldn't have seen it and wouldn't have delayed my classes. Send me to the hospital. There are still 3 months before the college entrance examination. I'm really sorry for delaying your classes." "And it's fine." Nianj's heart was filled with joy. She really did not know what to say. She hoped that there would be fewer main courses in school today, and not delay him. However, it seemed like he would occasionally read books in advance. Perhaps he had already read the things he had to learn today, and had already learned them. That time, when he went out for the competition, there were quite a lot of courses in those days, but later on, he knew all the questions related to the exam. Therefore, it should not be a problem if it was just one day. With this thought in mind, she felt slightly more at ease. She then looked at the person opposite her. Not only did Chin Sighting send her to the hospital and accompany her in the hospital, but he also came to her house. Now, he was actually sitting here with her at her house and eating with her. Furthermore, he had personally made the scallion noodles. It was really hard to imagine what Chin Sighting's usual life was like. As a member of the Chin family, he actually knew how to make such delicious noodles. Could it be that he was used to taking care of himself, and rarely asked the servants and aunties to help him? This was really a bonus. What should she do? She really liked him. She liked him so much that she felt that in the future, she wanted to make a mark on the bowl he was using now. In the future, when she ate, she would definitely use that bowl. No matter how many times it had been washed in the dishwasher, those were all bowls that Chin Sighting had touched. She felt that she could place them by the bed and stare at them every day. As she watched Chin Sighting eat quietly, Nianj's heart continued to race. The way he ate was really good looking. After the meal, Nianj could not help but ask Chin Sighting, "When I was in the car in the morning, I saw you under that tree. Did you happen to pass by at that time? Or were you waiting for me?" Chin Sighting looked at her. When Nianj thought that he would not answer her question, he slowly said, "Waiting for you." Nianj's mouth was slightly agape. She looked at Chin Sighting, and felt that her breathing was not smooth. Her brain seemed to be filled with something and blocked. She could not come back to her senses. He was waiting for her. Was he waiting for her under the tree, where she had been waiting for him recently? Nianj's heart churned. Why would you wait for me?" Chin Sighting did not answer her, because the 2 aunties of the Shi family had arrived and pressed the doorbell. Nianj stood up to open the door, but she turned back to look at Chin Sighting, wanting to hear what he would say. However, it was as though he had not said anything. He lowered his head to look at the time on his phone. The door opened, and Auntie Lu and Auntie Sue walked in with various bottles and cans in their hands. At the same time, they sized her up nervously. "Nian Nian, Io, little ancestor, why didn't you tell us earlier that you were sick? We could have come earlier. When we were at home, we were in a hurry and didn't have time to cook anything. Now, we're here to cook something for you. Just wait." "No need, Auntie Lu. I've eaten." Nianj chuckled. "You've eaten? Did you make it yourself?" The 2 aunties were surprised. "No, it's my classmate. He accompanied me to the hospital in school today, and then came back with Uncle Chin to take care of me for a while. He made some simple food. I'm already very full." At the mention of Chin Sighting, Nianj felt her ears heat up. As she spoke, she even glanced at the clean young man behind her. Chapter 1473. The 2 aunties had seen the fairy-like young man when they entered the door. But since Nianj was sick, they did not ask too much. Now they shifted their attention back to Chin Sighting. At first, they were surprised, but then they quickly said, "It's good that you've eaten. We were afraid that it would be too late to cook here. Why aren't you going back to your room to rest? What are you still doing here? Didn't you have a fever? I'm much better now. I can't sleep even if I keep lying down. Besides, I just ate. If I lie down directly, my stomach won't feel well. That's right. Then all of you rest. Your Auntie Sue and I will go get some fruits for you and your classmates to eat. If you're sick, drink more water and eat more fruits and vegetables. The two of us will stay here tonight until you recover. I don't think it's possible. Don't stay in Lishui Villa alone. Come back to the Sure family with us. Auntie Lou was usually talkative, but now, she was nagging nonstop. No, the Sure family is too far from the school. This place is close to the school, and it's convenient to go to school. There's no need to wake up so early. You know that I'm in my 3rd year of high school. I leave early and return late every day. There's no need to waste so much time on the road. As Sure Nianj spoke, she glanced back at Qin Sighting, meaning that he could help her testify how tight the school time was. Qin Sighting's beautiful brows moved slightly, but he did not say much. When the two aunties looked at him, he nodded politely as a form of courtesy. After the two aunties arrived, Qin Sighting had no reason to continue staying here. Even if Sure Nianj didn't want him to leave, it was already past 12 o'clock. He could return to school before 1 in the afternoon. This way, he would only be delaying half of his lessons. No matter how reluctant she was, she still said, "Go back to school before 1. It's just delaying the morning's lessons. My guilt in my heart will be smaller. Can you help me back up my notes?" "Sure. Thank you, Almighty Qin." This was the only conversation between the two of them after the two aunties arrived. Seeing that he had left, Sure Nianj stood by the door and watched his back. In fact, she felt a little regretful. If she hadn't asked him to return to school in the afternoon, if she hadn't asked him to leave, would he not have left so quickly? But she really didn't want him to waste his time here. Even if he didn't want to. Auntie Sue went upstairs to disinfect her room. When she came down, she saw that Sure Nianj was still standing in front of the door, thinking about something. She walked over and said, "Nian Nian, the room has been disinfected. Remember to ventilate it these few days, in case you catch a cold. What are you still standing here for? Hasn't your classmate already left?" "Nothing." Sure Nianj retracted her gaze. She did not dare to look at Auntie Sue's curious gaze, and returned to her room. The bowl and chopsticks that Qin Sighting had used became Sure Nianj's personal use. She used the same set every day when she ate at home. Although it seemed a little shameful, he still wanted to use it. Even when he was eating, he couldn't wait to hold it with both hands, afraid of knocking it or touching it. He was even more careful than the ancient ceramic bowls at home, that were worth 6 or 7 figures. After all, Qin Sighting had used it before. Sure Nianj personally washed the dishes. After washing them, she wiped them dry and placed them in a conspicuous position in the cupboard drawer. The phone in her pocket rang. She had sent a message to Qin Sighting half an hour ago, and he had only replied now. Backup. After resting at home for 3 days, her fever finally subsided. Her mental state was much better, and she could return to school tomorrow. She had just sent a message to Qin Sighting to ask if he had helped her make a backup of her notes in class. Then he replied. Looking at the 3 words sent by Qin Sighting on her phone, Sure Nianj felt sweet in her heart. Perhaps it was because she had liked him for a long time that she would find candy to eat. Now, every time she spoke to him or sent him a message, she would feel sweet from the bottom of her heart. Qin Sighting seemed to be different from before. Although he was still cold and spoke little, basically, no matter what she asked or sent, he would answer her directly. His expression in front of her was no longer expressionless and cold. In fact, there would be some changes, although the changes were not too big. And that day, he said that he was waiting for her. Sure Nianj clearly remembered that when the two of them first sat at the same table, Qin Sighting's expression was always cold, because there was another person by his side. She could tell how cold he was, and he really didn't want her to sit by his side. His occasional frown and impatient expression all showed his rejection at that time. And now, when she smiled at him or said a word, he would turn his head to look at her. His gaze would also land on her face. He would no longer avoid her. His gaze would also calmly look at her without much coldness. She could happily wait for him outside the school gates every day and go to school with him. She could sit together every day and look for him to read his notes, look at his papers, and ask him to help her analyze the big questions. Most importantly, he would actually wait for her under the tree. It seemed like he usually didn't talk much to others, especially to girls. There were too many girls who had a crush on him, but he really ignored them. He didn't even look at them. Just like how he rarely spoke to other girls, of course, he definitely wouldn't text other girls. However, Chin Sighting would reply to her messages. Now that she had recovered, she could lie down and roll around again. Shirnianj ran back to the bedroom and rolled around for a long time before she calmed down. When she slept at night, she was still thinking about how she had to wait for him under the tree early tomorrow morning, because he knew that she would return to school tomorrow. If she was late, would he wait for her again? Forget it. It was better for her to wait for him. She fell asleep with such a mood. When she woke up the next day, she was in a good mood. When she rushed under the tree to wait, she specially looked at the time. It was a few minutes earlier than she had arrived a few days ago. He would definitely see her when he passed by later. 2 minutes later, Shirnianj heard the sound of a car nearby. She subconsciously turned back and suddenly saw the familiar black business car. It was the car that Chin Sighting's mother used last time. Her gaze shifted in that direction and saw that the car was parked between the tree and the school gate. The smile in her eyes gradually disappeared. Seeing this car, she knew without guessing. Chin Sighting probably wouldn't take this path today. Recently, it's really the ice age of the online literature world. I heard that many of my friends' books have been blocked and removed from the shelves. It's getting stricter and stricter. Ching Ching's book has also been blocked for more than 100 chapters, because Emonwan's plot is too sweet and ambiguous. I'm still working hard to change it. I hugged my head and cried. Chapter 1474. As expected, Chin Sighting did not take this path at all today. She did not see a single person. Shirnianj waited for a while. Seeing that a few minutes had passed, she picked up her phone and sent a message to Chin Sighting. Have you arrived at school? Chin Sighting recovered rather quickly. No. Shirnianj. I saw that black business car again. You won't be walking here today, will you? Chin Sighting replied. Where are you? Shirnianj. It's okay. I've already entered the school. You don't have to come over. With that, she raised her eyes to look at the business car again. She ignored it and walked toward the school gate. She heard her phone vibrate again and picked it up to take a look as she walked. Chin Sighting. Don't move. I'll come over. She paused in her steps and abruptly turned back to look at her surroundings. She guessed that Chin Sighting was really on another road. She quickly took a photo of the school gate for him. I'm already in. You don't have to come over. I know you don't want to see the person in that car. I don't want to see you unhappy. See you in class later. After sending it, she quickly walked into the school building. Chin Sighting did not reply. She entered the class, put down her bag and walked out. She stood at the staircase for a while. This was the only way to enter the class. She could clearly wait for him to enter the class, but she wanted to come earlier, even if it was a second or a few seconds earlier. When Chin Sighting's figure appeared at the staircase below, Shirnianj quickly waved at him happily. Chin Sighting, Almighty Chin, the clean young man heard the noise and looked up from the staircase. He saw a girl in a school uniform waving at him with a smile on her face. She was no longer standing under the tree outside the school gate. Instead, she was standing at the staircase outside the classroom. She held the railing beside the staircase with one hand and waved at him with the other. Her smiling eyes were curved and full of joy. Coincidentally, the form teacher, Teacher Zhao, happened to walk up from behind Chin Sighting. The two of them walked up the stairs at almost the same time. When they heard Shirnianj's words, they immediately stopped and raised their heads to look at her. The excited expression on Shirnianj's face instantly froze. Her hand stopped in midair, and she grinned at Teacher Zhao. Teacher Zhao. Teacher Zhao's expression froze, and he glared at her, meaning for her to hurry back to class. Nianj pursed her lips and secretly glanced at Qin Sighting. Seeing that he was still cold and indifferent, he did not even look at the teacher behind him. He just walked up as though nothing had happened. Under the teacher's glare, Nianj quickly turned around and ran back to the class. Before she ran back, she even gave Qin Sighting a happy look. Qin Sighting saw this look. Teacher Zhao stood on the spot fuming. He stood there with one hand on his waist. He recalled Nianj's extremely happy expression, and then recalled Qin Sighting's expression when he stopped to look up. It seemed like he was still a little focused. These two kids can't really be in love, right? They were already adults. It was very common for high school students to fall in love. Furthermore, these two were from the Qin family and the Shi family. He definitely could not control them. However, it was not long before the college entrance examination. If they fell in love now, what if it affected their studies? The key was that Nianj really did not hide it. Back then, before she came to the third year of high school, she had also heard about her and Tang Xiao. However, when she heard the teachers in the office chatting and discussing, they said that the Tang family and the Shi family were cooperating. The two children became closer. It seemed like they were not very intimate in school. They did not even hold hands when they often ate together, so the teachers turned a blind eye. However, Nianj clearly did not treat Qin Sighting that way. This girl seemed to like Qin Sighting very much. After being a teacher for so many years, he had seen many stories of secret love and open love, especially Qin Sighting. He was definitely a dragon among men. There were many young ladies who liked him, but Nianj seemed to really have the ability to make him stop and take a second look. If these two kids really fell in love, shouldn't he, as a teacher, use some authority to warn them? At least wait until after the college entrance examination. However, after all, they were from the Shi family and the Qin family. He still had to protect his job. If he said anything harsh, it would not be good for him. He could not hit, say, or scold them. What should he do? Teacher Zhao was very distressed. He could only hope that these two children simply liked each other and did not do anything before the college entrance examination. While Teacher Zhao was fuming, Nianj returned to the class and sat down. She raised her eyes and saw Qin Sighting enter. She raised her hand and greeted him with a sweet smile. Teacher Zhao, I'm sorry. Qin Sighting walked over and sat down by her side. She leaned over and whispered, Almighty Qin, where are my notes? Qin Sighting glanced at her and handed the pink notebook that belonged to her desk. Nianj quickly picked it up and flipped through it. She saw that there were a few pages in her notebook that were filled with Qin Sighting's handwriting. She instantly held the notebook and giggled happily. Nianj was also big-hearted. After attending class for a while, she forgot about seeing the car in the morning. Qin Sighting did not mention it either. She did not know if he had taken a detour in the morning, or if he had really gone under the tree. Forget it. In any case, he seemed to know everything. There was nothing for her to worry about. For the entire morning, Nianj would occasionally look at the pages of words in her notebook. As she had read too much, she had actually memorized all the lessons she had missed in the past few days. She even took the opportunity to look at Qin Sighting's own handwriting after class. After comparing the notes for the past few days, she realized that his own notes were still in his usual style. It was especially difficult to look at them. However, the notes he had backed up for her were all simple and introductory. She could easily understand them and absorb them into her brain. After looking at them a few more times, it was as though she could remember the essence of them. As a result, in the past few days, she had only read the notes a few times. It was as though she had made up for it. She did not miss anything at all. He actually knew how she usually listened in class and took notes. He actually knew that she could remember it in this way. Until the afternoon, Nianj was still admiring her notebook in satisfaction. While Qin Sighting was not paying attention, she secretly used a red pen to mark a few red hearts and two-way red heart arrows at the bottom of the pages he had written. Qin Sighting saw that she was secretly writing and drawing on the notebook. He glanced at her indifferently. Nianj covered the notebook to prevent him from looking at her. She only smiled sweetly. Chapter 1475. After finishing the painting, Shirnianj sat there in satisfaction and admired it for a while. Then she sighed. The person she liked was sitting by her side. This feeling was really wonderful. There were still 2 more classes before school ended. There were activities in school tonight, so there was no need to study at night. She could leave early. Shirnianj felt quite regretful that she couldn't enter the school gates with Chin sighting in the morning. After school, she simply walked with him from the back. Initially, Chin sighting thought that she was only here to buy something from the supermarket on the way here, and would leave after buying it. In the end, he realized that she did not enter the supermarket, but still took the same route as him. In fact, Shirnianj had found this road a few days ago when she was resting at home and bored. She realized that she could go home from the main road in front of the school's entrance. Although it was a little longer than taking the road beside her, it was not much different. It would only take her more than 10 minutes to walk. However, this way, she could walk with Chin sighting. There were many students on the main road in the middle. Shirnianj followed him for a long time, but was too embarrassed to go to the front. She just walked slowly behind him. Chin sighting walked too fast. In fact, it was difficult for her to catch up. Gradually, she suddenly realized that his footsteps had slowed down. She first looked at his back, then saw that he had stopped and turned back to look at her. Seeing that he had discovered her so quickly, Shirnianj was a little surprised. She suddenly turned around without thinking, and did not react for a moment. For a long time, she was conflicted about how to be firm with Chin sighting without appearing too deliberate. After thinking for a while, she turned around and saw that Chin sighting was still standing there looking at her. She could only bite the bullet and walk over. "Hi, what a coincidence," Chin sighting asked her. "Where are you going?" "Home." Shirnianj quickly moved closer to his side. "Home." Chin sighting raised his brows coldly. It was clear that he was not convinced by her reason. "I mean, the road beside the school has to pass through the middle street. There have been a lot of people on the street recently, and there's a road that's being repaired. It's bumpy, and it's very difficult to walk. It's almost dark now. There are few people on that road, and it's not safe. I'm thinking of changing to the main road. Anyway, when we get close to Lishui Villa, there happens to be a specially built road that leads directly to my home." Chin sighting did not interrupt her explanation. He just glanced at her again and nodded. Nodding meant that he agreed with what she said, or that he accepted what she said. In the end, he did not refute her or expose her. From that day onwards, Shirnianj would follow Chin sighting at night and walk with him for 10 to 20 minutes. If she walked fast, it would only be 10 minutes. If she walked slowly, it would be 20 minutes. However, usually, they did not talk much because they could not find much to talk about. Furthermore, it was a topic that only one person could talk about. Chin sighting did not talk much. She knew this very well. Finally, she heard the bell that said that school was over. However, she had to study until 9 o'clock tonight. By then, the sky would already be dark. Usually, if it was so late, Uncle Chin would come to pick her up, or she would take a taxi back to Lishui Villa. But tonight, she still wanted to leave with Chin sighting. Hearing the bell ring at 9:30 p.m., Shirnianj quickly packed her school bag and sat inside waiting for Chin sighting to get up. Every day, she packed her school bag faster than Chin sighting because she knew that if she was slow, Chin sighting might not wait for her. Although she didn't know if he would wait, she didn't want him to wait. This was too risky. She didn't dare to try. After leaving the school gate, she still had to take a turn. After walking with him for 20 minutes, there were very few people on the road behind. Every day, she would walk with him on the innermost right side, because Chin sighting didn't like crowds. Occasionally, when someone brushed past him, he would avoid them. He was indeed the Chin sighting who didn't like to touch others. "It's so cold today." As Shirnianj spoke, she withdrew her hands into her sleeves. "It's already April, but it's still so cold. This spring is so long. Almighty Chin, you have to wear more clothes. I don't think you usually wear thick clothes. I remember that you didn't wear thick clothes in winter either. Be careful not to catch a cold. Look, the last time I caught a cold, I had a high fever. It was so uncomfortable." Chin Sighting said. It's not cold. Why isn't it cold? Your hands are clearly cold. Shi Nianj recalled that when she accidentally touched his hand on the table during class, she felt that his hand was sometimes warm and sometimes cold. On the other hand, every time she blushed and her heart raced, she felt that her blood was flowing to her hand, and she felt that her fingers were burning. Chin Sighting did not reply. Shi Nianj had finally found a topic to talk about before it ended. She was also afraid that if she spoke too much, Chin Sighting would find it noisy, so she quietly followed him for a while. Seeing that they were about to reach the corner of the intersection, Shi Nianj said, "A few days ago, Teacher Zhao asked me to go to his office to tutor more. In the future, he might ask me to stay in the office during self-study time. I think my grandfather said something to the teacher to ask me to improve my grades. Actually, I want to enter medical school. According to my current mock exam results, I can actually pass. However, the teacher has been especially strict with me recently, so I can't study with you." What she said was true. Originally, she wanted to rely on medical school. With her current grades and scores, she could actually get in smoothly. However, Grandpa probably didn't want her to neglect cultural studies, because she wanted to study medicine. So he told the teacher about it, which caused the teacher to keep an eye on her recently. Chin Sighting answered softly, "All right. Then tomorrow." Shi Nianj was actually a little embarrassed, but she felt that although he did not reject her leaving with him, he did not seem to have anything to talk to her about. She had persisted for so many days, but his response could be counted on one hand. Although she could find some sweetness and joy from it, it was inevitable that she would suffer some blows. However, she still braced herself and asked, "Can I wait for you under the tree outside the school tomorrow morning? I can still leave with you tomorrow night, right?" Chin Sighting answered very quickly. Without thinking, he nodded. All right. These two all right were too wonderful. If Chin Sighting wasn't right in front of her, Shi Nianj would have jumped up. He did not reject her, and it was clear that he was used to her existence. "See you tomorrow." Shi Nianj could not suppress her happiness. She smiled and waved at him, turning to leave. She calculated in her heart. Every night, they would walk together for 20 minutes, and in the morning, they would spend a lot of time alone. Chapter 1476. Shi Nianj turned around and walked toward the path with few people. She had only taken a few steps when her phone suddenly vibrated in her pocket. She stopped and picked it up to take a look. Chin Sighting. "Just to walk with me for 20 minutes. You have to spend 20 minutes walking on an almost empty path every day. It's dark and the road is long. Aren't you afraid?" Shi Nianj's heart skipped a beat. Was he starting to expose her? Did he think that her actions were unnecessary? She lowered her head and was about to reply when she suddenly felt someone approaching from behind. She subconsciously turned her head and saw that Chin Sighting had walked over at some point in time. He walked to her side and looked down at her. "There's no need to reply. I'll send you back." Shi Nianj opened her mouth in surprise. Ah! By the time she reacted, Chin Sighting had already walked in front of her. She was stunned for a long while before she quickly jogged to catch up. "Almighty Chin, are you sending me home?" She smiled so widely that she could not close her mouth. Why? It's really too far for you to walk back after sending me back. It's very late. It's not safe for you to be alone." "I'm fine. There aren't many people on this road. I think even if there are bad people, they won't walk on such a deserted road," Shi Nianj said with a chuckle. Shi Nianj said with a chuckle, but although she said that, her body was very honest. She followed closely behind him. Chin Sighting suddenly stopped in his tracks. She was caught off guard and almost bumped into his back. She quickly stopped and raised her head to look at him. The clean youth stared into her eyes. "Are you usually so careless? There aren't even any streetlights on this road. How are you going to walk back?" "I have a flashlight in my bag. My phone can also light up." He pursed his lips and did not speak. He looked at the pitch-black road around him and walked forward without saying anything. Why did she feel like he was angry? Don't be angry. She was happy. Shi Nianj quickly followed him. She suddenly took the opportunity to tug on his sleeve. Seeing that he did not pull his hand back, she tugged at his sleeve and said, "It's indeed very dark. I can't even see the road clearly. Can I just hold on to you like this?" There was no response, nor did he wave it away. Very good. He didn't walk very fast, so she could keep up. However, he was still tall, so if he walked slowly, she would have to walk faster. If she walked too fast, she wouldn't be able to control the strength in her hands. Her fingers suddenly fell out of his sleeves. However, in that instant he suddenly stopped and looked back at her. It wasn't until she hurriedly pulled on his sleeves that he retracted his gaze and continued walking. The next day, Shirnianj woke up early. Or, it could be said that after she was sent back by Chin sighting last night, she almost did not sleep. Her heart was filled with this person, and she kept thinking about this person. Before 5 in the morning, she did not want to sleep. She got up and heated milk and bread for herself. After quickly eating, she took her school bag and went downstairs. She had left too early today, and would probably have to wait for him outside the school for half an hour. It was still quite cold outside. Shirnianj shrunk her shoulders and leaned against the tree, thinking that it would be summer in a month. It would probably only be cold for a few days. Soon, even her school uniform would have to be changed into summer clothes. She then thought about how she seemed to have come out a little early, and felt that she had been silly recently. However, she couldn't care less. She just felt that even if she stood here for half an hour in advance, she would be very happy during this half an hour of waiting. Time finally passed bit by bit. Half an hour later, she saw Chin sighting's figure appear at the intersection in front of her. Shirnianj immediately smiled. It was a feeling that all the flowers in her heart had bloomed. Shirnianj had never experienced this kind of longing for a person's experience before. But this feeling was really good and comfortable. She felt that her entire heart was soft. Almighty Chin, when she approached, she waved her hand and greeted with a smile. "Good morning." Chin sighting looked at her, his gaze calm and warm. Shirnianj saw the corners of his lips curl up slightly. He said, "Good morning." Did he just smile? Did he smile at her? Shirnianj stood rooted to the spot, somewhat stunned. She stared at his face and did not move. Her mouth was still slightly open. She looked a little silly. The smile on Chin sighting's lips widened. He looked into her eyes and repeated, "Good morning." This time, the smile in his eyes was even more obvious. Shirnianj blinked and then nodded vigorously. Good morning. Good morning, Almighty Chin." She spoke too quickly. She looked like a little rabbit that was about to jump out of its cage. "Oh my God." Chin sighting smiled at her. His smile was too good-looking. Oh my God, oh my God. She felt that her blood was about to be dried by his smile in an instant. Earlier, when she saw him walk under the tree, she felt that the flowers in her heart had bloomed early. Now, the flowers in her heart had almost exploded into fireworks crackling. She hadn't waited for half an hour in the morning for nothing. If she had known that waiting for him for half an hour would allow Chin sighting to smile at her, she wouldn't have waited for half an hour. After all, she couldn't sleep last night. She should have come to wait in the morning. His smile made Shirnianj dumbfounded. Even when she entered the school and the teaching building, she could not say a word. "Nian Nian." Shirnianj heard someone calling her from behind. Before she could turn back, she felt her arm suddenly being pulled back by a force. She turned around and saw that Tang Xiao had actually run over early in the morning. Seeing that she was walking beside Chin sighting, he quickly went forward and pulled her over. She was caught off guard and almost bumped into Tang Xiao's arms. It wasn't easy for her to stabilize herself and quickly dodged to the side. She frowned and suddenly turned back to look at Chin sighting. She saw that Chin sighting was calmly looking at Tang Xiao's hand on her wrist. With just a glance, Shirnianj quickly pulled her hand out. "Tang Xiao, what are you doing?" Shirnianj felt an inexplicable anger in her heart. She turned her eyes. "The last time your dad came to stop me at the school gate, I should have told him very clearly. What do you want?" "I don't mean anything else. I know you're determined not to be with me. But Nian Nian, my grandfather's birthday is next week. He invited all the big families in High City to hold a birthday party at Diyao Hotel. The Shi family is also invited. Will you go?" Tang Xiao saw her unhappy expression and did not dare to say more. He could only go straight to the point. However, his expression was filled with concern that she had actually walked in with Qin sighting. Chapter 1477. Tang Xiao's grandfather's birthday? Shi Nian's heart skipped a beat. Although the Tang family had some reputation in High City, the Shi family's business had been booming in recent years. They were like a dark horse in High City, and were widely praised by the industry. There were countless partners who came with money. The reason why they agreed to cooperate with the Tang family was because Tang Xiao's grandfather had done the Shi family a favor. On account of this, the Shi and Tang families were closer. Since Tang Xiao had mentioned his grandfather, no matter how unwilling Shi Nian was, she could not fall out with him on the spot, even though she wished she could kick the central air conditioner to the horizon. Even if the Shi family was invited, my parents aren't in the country. As a child, I can't represent my parents to attend your grandfather's birthday banquet, Shi Nian said coldly. Shi Nian said coldly, when I go back tonight, I'll call my parents to inform them. They should send some birthday gifts back. You can just inform my parents about this. There's no need to tell me. After speaking, she turned to see that Qin sighting was still standing there. He did not leave, nor did he have any intention of rushing her. However, he was clearly waiting for her. Tang Xiao also noticed this, and turned to look at Qin sighting. He immediately felt even more upset. This iceberg rarely interacted with others, but he had only come to class 6 a few times. These few times, he could almost see Shi Nian walking with Qin sighting. Tang Xiao immediately felt that this sense of crisis was somewhat obvious. He suddenly held her wrist again. Come out with me. It's almost time for morning self-study. Our form teacher is almost here. Where am I going? Shi Nian quickly shook him off. All right, Tang Xiao. If there's anything, text me. Don't make me late for morning self-study, okay? Seeing that Qin sighting was still standing there silently waiting for her, and that Shi Nian was in a hurry to go to his side, Tang Xiao frowned and lowered his voice to ask in a low voice that only she could hear. What's going on between you and Qin sighting? Why are you so close? He's my desk mate. It's normal for us to be close. Besides, I don't think there's any need for me to explain to you. Shi Nian really couldn't stand his pestering. Tang Xiao, do you have to make me say the ugliest things? Don't you know how we started walking together? Don't you know how it ended? There was no emotional foundation in the first place. If it's over, then it's over. It's really meaningless for you to keep pestering me like this. I'm not pestering you. I really like you, Nian Nian. Tang Xiao wanted to hold her hand. This time, Shi Nian decided to suddenly escape from his side. She took 2 steps to the side and moved closer to Qin sighting. Although she did not grab his arm or tug at his sleeve, she instinctively hid behind him. Big brother, just because you like me doesn't mean that I have to like you. Just like how you like to carry the prettiest girl in your class to the infirmary and take care of her for an entire afternoon, it doesn't mean that I have to be a saint and applaud your kindness. People were different, especially when they had different viewpoints. It was even more impossible for them to be together. That would only torture each other. Shi Nian was too lazy to speak, but her expression was filled with the distance between her and Tang Xiao. Qin sighting stood in place without moving. Tang Xiao had just taken 2 steps in this direction, when he suddenly saw Qin sighting reach out and hold Shi Nian's hand. At the same time, he turned back and said as though there was no one else here. Can we go in now? Shi Nian was also stunned by the sudden warmth of his palm. She looked at him in a daze. Qin sighting retracted his hand, but at this moment he placed his hand on her back. It could not be considered a hug, but it looked especially intimate. Just like that, he placed one hand on her back in a protective manner, and protected her as she entered the classroom. When the 2 of them entered, they did not look back, but Tang Xiao's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. Damn it, was he cuckolded by Qin sighting? What was Shi Nian's expression just now? Was she actually shocked and shy? She had never had such an expression when she was with him. She was clearly a calm and rational young lady in front of him. Her personality could not hide her liveliness and cuteness, but at least she had never been as shy as before. She actually liked Qin sighting. Tang Xiao was furious, but he noticed that the teacher of class 6 was walking over from the office. Seeing a teacher coming over, he turned around with a dark expression and picked up his phone to call Shirnianj as he walked toward his class. Sorry, the number you have dialed is temporarily unavailable. Please try again later. He called again, but it was still the same. Tang Xiao put down his phone with a dark expression. He had indeed been blacklisted by her long ago. Even now, she had not released him. Qin Sighting placed his hand on her back and walked into the class with her. There were already many students in the class. After entering, he put his hand down without a trace and signaled her with his gaze to sit down and not waste time in front of the door. Shirnian's mind was still in a daze. She sat down and turned to look at him. Qin Sighting glanced at her again, as though asking, "Do you have something to say?" She immediately stopped talking and didn't ask anything. But her heart was pounding. She didn't want to be too arrogant. But why did she feel that Qin Sighting seemed to, however, she didn't have the chance to think too much. The form teacher had already entered. After entering, he called out a few students who had fought in the school field last night. There was actually Hao Xiuxia. After being scolded by the teacher, several students were called to the office by the teacher with a cold face, and the class monitor was ordered to watch over everyone's morning self-study. Although the teacher was not present at the moment, the atmosphere in the entire class was so strict that no one dared to breathe. Thankfully, Qin Sighting was not affected at all. Shirnianj sat inside him. On her left was him, and on her right was the wall. She always had a sense of security that was not disturbed by the outside world. Last night, because he had sent her home, she was too happy and did not sleep well. Now that he was by her side, she inexplicably relaxed and felt very sleepy. During the morning self-study session, everyone was very quiet. She lowered her head and wrote for a while before she could not take it anymore. She wanted to lean on the table and nap for a few minutes, but unknowingly, she fell asleep. She slept until the morning self-study session ended. When the bell rang, she woke up with a start. She opened her eyes and raised her head to see that everyone had left. It should be time for class to end. She wanted to sleep for another 10 minutes and wake up after class. She then leaned on the table again. She was really sleepy. She closed her eyes and fell asleep again. Chapter 1478. Qin Sighting saw that she had fallen asleep again and glanced sideways at her. He saw that she had buried her face in her arms and was sleeping soundly. She looked like she wanted to sleep here for the entire day. The bell rang. It was the first class of the morning, and all the students rushed in from outside. Hao Xiuxia, who had been called to the office by the teacher for a lecture, also rushed in. When he sat down, he saw that Shirnianj was still sleeping on her stomach. He quickly reached out to pat her awake. However, just as he stretched out his hand, it was suddenly blocked by a hand that rose from the air. Hao Xiuxia was surprised. He looked at the person beside Shirnianj and suddenly received Qin Sighting's gaze. There's no need to call her. Almighty Qin actually took the initiative to speak to him. Hao Xiuxia was stunned for a few seconds before quickly retracting his hand. However, he still glanced in disbelief at Shirnianj, who was still sleeping on her stomach. Zhao Xiaoqing was also very surprised. It was already class, but Almighty Qin did not allow her to wake Shirnianj up. He even blocked her. It seemed like he could not bear to wake her up. Could it be that Nian Nian had finally seen the bright moon? After guarding this iceberg for more than half a year, had she finally melted it? Shirnianj slept very soundly. She did not even hear the bell ringing. She had been sleeping on her stomach, and no one woke her up. In her sleep, she felt that these 10 minutes seemed a little long, but she was confident that someone would wake her up during class, so she allowed herself to continue sleeping. In her daze, she seemed to hear the teacher speaking, but she could not hear clearly. In the end, she was pulled back by her sleepiness. The first class was chemistry. The chemistry teacher saw Shirnianj sleeping and frowned. He picked up half a piece of chalk and was about to throw it at her to wake her up. In the end, Qin Sighting sat by her side and glanced at the podium from afar, causing the chemistry teacher's brows to twitch. Why did the Qin family's crown prince look like he was warning her? Was he planning to let Nianj continue sleeping? The chemistry teacher coughed and did not speak further. He began the lesson, but no teacher wished for a student to sleep in his class. At the beginning, his voice was louder than usual, but Nianj was still unconscious. He then saw Qin Sighting place the books on Nianj's table neatly in front of her, blocking the light in front of her table. It was as though he could isolate some sound for no reason. Seeing this, the chemistry teacher gave up and returned to his normal tone to continue the lesson. The third class was the form teacher's class. After the second class, Qin Sighting received a call and went out. Seeing that class was about to start, they were instinctively afraid of the form teacher, Old Zhao. They quickly took advantage of Qin Sighting's absence to wake Nianj up. Nianj rarely slept in class. Although her grades were not top-notch, she was definitely one of the students who was serious enough to make the teacher like her. Today, it was rare for her to sleep from morning self-study to the last 2 classes. She had almost made up for her sleep. Suddenly, she was woken up by Hao Xiuxia. She sat up and looked forward in a daze. She realized that it was still time for class to end. Could it be that class was about to start? She woke up. Hey Nian Nian, you've already slept for a morning self-study session and 2 classes. The next class is Old Zhao's. Don't sleep anymore, Hao Xiuxia said from behind. When Nianj heard this, a chill ran down her spine. She abruptly turned to look at the little fatty behind her. I slept for 2 classes? Hao Xiuxia nodded and then said with an admiring expression, You're really good. Earlier, the chemistry teacher and the language teacher didn't wake you up. But I guess it's because Almighty Qin was sitting next to you. Otherwise, the teacher's chalk would definitely hit your head. Nianj was stunned for a moment before turning to look at Zhao Xiaoqing. She saw that Zhao Xiaoqing nodded hard at her, which was equivalent to confirming Hao Xiuxia's words. She quickly picked up her phone to check the time. It was really about to start the 3rd class. Oh my god, she actually slept for so long. Didn't anyone wake her up for so long? Why didn't you wake me up during class? She turned back and asked. Zhao Xiaoqing glanced at Hao Xiuxia, and Hao Xiuxia also glanced at Zhao Xiaoqing. The 2 of them spread their hands. What's wrong? Seeing their expressions, Nianj felt that they had something to say. Your Almighty Qin didn't allow us to wake you up, Zhao Xiaoqing said meaningfully. Zhao Xiaoqing said meaningfully. So Shai's demon claws have already reached your back, but Almighty Qin stopped them. He said not to wake you up and told you to sleep well. Nianj felt that she was probably still asleep. Otherwise, why would she hear such words? Did Qin Sighting not allow others to wake her up? Then what did she look like when she slept? Did you leave a mark on your face? Did she sleep until her face turned red? Did he see how she slept in class? Now that she had slept enough and her mental state was better, she sat there in a daze as though she had not woken up. The bell for the 3rd class rang. When Qin Sighting returned, he saw that she was already awake. His gaze first landed on her, and then on Hao Xiuxia behind her. Hao Xiuxia quickly raised his book to cover his face to prevent Almighty Qin from settling the score with him. He was indeed the one who woke Nianj up. Zhao Xiaoqing did not dare to speak from the back. She quietly glanced in Nianj's direction and saw that she was still sitting there in a daze. I slept for so long. Nianj turned to look at Qin Sighting, who had quietly sat down. 1 morning self-study session and 2 classes. Qin Sighting looked at her. Why didn't you wake me up? Being looked at by him like this, Nianj felt a little embarrassed. I didn't sleep well last night and woke up early this morning, so I was especially sleepy. In the morning, I couldn't control myself and fell asleep. Originally, I only wanted to sleep for morning self-study, but I didn't expect that I wouldn't wake up during class. Qin Sighting did not answer. He only placed a bottle of hot milk that she usually bought at the school supermarket on her table and said, Finish it. Nianj was even more shocked. She woke up too early in the morning. Usually, between the 1st and 2nd classes, she would buy milk for the supermarket auntie to heat up and bring it back to drink. He actually remembered her habit. He knew that she did not drink milk in the morning and actually went to buy it for her after class. She suddenly did not know what to say. Suddenly she felt like crying. Nianj was a tough woman who would not shed a single tear for years. At this moment, she actually felt like crying. What was wrong with her today? Or rather, what was wrong with her recently? Drink, Nianj said again. All right, I'll drink. Nianj quickly picked up the milk. It was indeed the brand she usually drank. There were many brands of milk in the school supermarket. She usually drank this brand, and he also bought this brand. It was a familiar taste, but it was also a warmth that she was not familiar with. Chapter 1479. As she drank the milk, she quietly raised her head to look at the podium. Teacher Zhao came in to prepare for class. She quickly took 2 sips. Drink slowly. It's a little hot, Nianj said. You. But the teacher is here, Nianj said softly as she swallowed the hot milk in her mouth. I'm fine, Nianj answered again. If he said it was fine, then it was really fine. Teacher Zhao only glanced at her. Seeing that she was about to finish the milk, he only glared at her, reminding her to drink it quickly. This time, Nianj drank even faster. After drinking it, because her mouth was hot, she quickly stuck out her tongue and took 2 light breaths. Then she turned to look at Nianj with a smile. Nianj turned to see her sticking out her tongue and smiling mischievously at him. His gaze landed on her slightly red lips, and he retracted his gaze. His gaze landed on the podium. Nianj did not feel that there was anything wrong. She retracted her gaze and quickly put down the empty milk bottle, preparing to focus on the class. However, the teacher was teaching in front of her. She could not help but think that if in Nianj's heart, she was the same as everyone else, she would definitely smash a milk bottle on his head and repeat everything that had happened today. She would let everyone know that Nianj was really good to her. Taking the opportunity when the teacher turned to write on the blackboard, Nianj tilted her head and leaned close to Nianj to whisper, Did you already remember the brand of milk I like to drink? He actually answered. Although it was very soft and light, he really answered. Nianj instantly felt her entire heart tremble. It trembled until it was sore and painful. It was the indescribable feeling of being smashed down by joy. She felt everything. Right now, she could not think about why he would remember this, or why he would go out to buy milk for her, because she was sleeping. He even carefully asked the supermarket auntie to heat it up and bring it back. She just felt that everyone's misunderstanding of such a warm person like Nianj was too deep. How was he cold? He was cold on the outside but warm on the inside. He was definitely a super invincible warm man. He was really worthy of being liked, okay? Those female classmates who were secretly in love with him really had the same taste as her. After class, Nianj lowered her head to look at the empty milk bottle she had placed below. She felt as though she was about to completely fall into Nianj's hands. He likes me, right? At the end of the day, he did not reject her nor did he hate her. Was he used to her? Or did he like her a little? Or was it just because of the friendship between desk mates? After all, they had been sitting together for more than a semester, more than half a year. When they went to the school cafeteria for lunch, Zhao Xiaoqing raised her hand and waved it in front of Nianj's eyes. Come back to your senses. Almighty Qin's cup of milk has completely taken your soul away. You've been foolishly happy all morning. Nianj looked at her and smiled. She picked up her chopsticks to eat. It looks like it's going to rain tonight. Look at the sky. It's been cloudy for a few hours. Zhao Xiaoqing turned to look out the window of the cafeteria. It's almost summer. It's almost the rainy season. Only then did Nianj remember. I woke up too early in the morning and didn't watch the weather forecast. I forgot to bring an umbrella. Then why don't you ask the driver to drive you back? Don't walk on the road tonight. It's been cloudy all day. It'll probably rain heavily. We'll see. It might not rain. Don't catch a cold again. The last time you caught a cold, you took a few days off. It's getting closer and closer to the college entrance examination. If you take another leave, Teacher Zhao will really talk to you. Nianj did not speak. She just glanced at the weather outside. She wondered if Nianj had brought an umbrella. It seemed like men would not be so careful and meticulous, as to specially look at the weather forecast in the morning. If it was him, he probably wouldn't look at it either. He probably didn't bring it either. As expected, it began to rain outside in the afternoon, but it was not too heavy. It was just a shower. Shirniange was still praying that it would not rain after school. In the end, the rain continued until the sky turned dark. At 9:30 p.m., although the rain was not heavy, it was not officially summer yet. The temperature was a little cold, and there were still some raindrops floating outside. It was already so late, and Uncle Chin had a lot of things to do recently. Usually, when her parents were not in the country, Uncle Chin would only occasionally come over to take care of her. Most of the time, he would be on half vacation. However, as long as she called, he would immediately come over. It was already so late. Uncle Chin was probably at home with his wife and child. She really did not want to disturb him. She followed Chin sighting out. When they arrived outside the school, a cold breeze blew past. Before she could shiver, a school uniform was suddenly draped over her body. This school uniform also had a faint mint smell that belonged to Chin sighting. She was very familiar with this smell, and remembered it after smelling it once. Shirniange turned around, and saw that Chin sighting was only wearing a light-colored short-sleeved t-shirt. The school uniform had already been draped over her. "Aren't you cold?" She quickly wanted to return the clothes to him, but the moment she took them off, she felt that it was indeed a little cold outside. "Quickly put them back on." Chin sighting did not take it. He had already walked down the stairs in front of the teaching building and calmly said, "Wear them. I don't need it. I'm wearing clothes inside, and I'm also wearing the school uniform. Don't just let me wear them. Don't catch a cold." Shirniange did not walk as fast as him. She jogged and quickly chased after him. "Quick, I'll give you the clothes." Chin sighting did not take it. He only glanced back at her. With just a glance, Shirniange's hand paused. She immediately obediently put the clothes on herself, and then looked at him. Only then did she see that the temperature in his eyes had eased. In fact, she had been sleeping in the morning, and thinking about what had happened in the morning in the afternoon. She had hardly looked at Chin sighting. Now that she was walking by his side, although it was still drizzling, it should be fine if she did not hold an umbrella. The two of them walked together, but when they reached the school gate, he stopped and said, "Didn't you call the driver to pick you up?" "I forgot." She blinked. "It's raining. Don't walk so far tonight. Take a taxi back." He gestured with his chin to the taxi on the road ahead. Shirniange actually wanted to walk home with him like last night, but the weather last night was good. It was raining today, so she couldn't let him send her back in the rain. Even if he was willing, she couldn't do that, so she immediately answered, "All right, I'll take a taxi back. What about you?" Chin sighting did not answer. From the corner of her eye, she saw the familiar black business car parked there. Shirniange was immediately surprised. Anyway, during the evening self-study session, she had already finished most of her homework. There was only one math paper left to do. She directly put the uniform into the washing machine and added her favorite detergent and fabric softener. While the automatic washing machine was running, she finished the test paper. Half an hour later, after the uniform was washed, she picked up the dryer and dried it until it was almost dry. Then, she took his uniform to the room to iron it. In fact, the school uniform didn't need to be ironed at all, but she didn't want Chin sighting's clothes to become wrinkled in her hands. The quality of the uniform was actually a very ordinary material. After ironing it twice, it was very smooth. After carefully doing it, she hung the coat in a position where she could see it from the bed. When she laid down, she looked at the two school uniforms hanging together. One was a size 185 for men, and the other was a size 165 for women. When the big and small ones were placed together, it looked like two gentle people were intimately pressed together. Shirniange covered her face on the bed as she looked at it. She picked up the pillow and buried her face in it. The next day, when she arrived at school, Shirniange specially observed Chin sighting's expression. She saw that he seemed to be in a good mood, and was not as depressed as she had imagined. In that case, Although he had seen his mother last night, he should not have had any unhappiness. She was relieved. When she arrived in the morning, she had placed his school uniform neatly on his table. When Chin Sighting walked over, he saw the school uniform on the table. I washed it last night. I can wear it. Shirni was like a child who had done a good deed and was waiting for an adult to praise her. She widened her eyes and looked at it. Chin Sighting's handsome brows moved slightly. He picked up the school uniform and put it on. Seeing him put on the school uniform that she had personally washed and ironed, without saying a word, Shirni could not help but recall the scene of the two uniforms hanging together last night. Her face suddenly turned red. She turned her face away to avoid being seen by him. She lowered her head and pretended to be busy checking her homework from last night. But why was she blushing today? Just because the two uniforms were hanging together last night, and she accidentally had a dream? She dreamed that Chin Sighting kissed her? Originally, she was quite calm when facing him, but today, she inexplicably felt a sense of shyness. She always felt that the dream was too real. It was so real that when she opened her eyes in the morning and saw his clothes still hanging there, she felt that it was actually not a dream, causing her to be distracted early in the morning. When a person's thoughts were wandering, it was easy for them to casually draw out their thoughts. Shirni did not notice that in the morning math class, everyone was immersed in solving the problems and drawing out the key points. However, she had unconsciously written more than 10 Chin Sighting on the piece of paper in front of her. In fact, she had accidentally written a few of these during self-study in the morning. At first, she did not take it too seriously and only used the book to suppress it. Right now, she was actually continuing to draw out his name. When Shirni finally realized what she was doing, her face instantly turned red. Oh my God, what was she doing? Earlier, when the teacher asked her to circle the key points in the book, she was still lowering her head to write. Chin Sighting seemed to have reached out to take her book away. He should have helped her circle the key points, so he must have seen it when he turned his head. Had he seen her writing his name on the toilet paper? Let her die. She did not dare to look at the person beside her for the entire class. When she heard the bell ring, she directly laid her head on the table, wishing that her forehead could make a sound. Chin Sighting was shocked by her head hitting the table. He turned his head to look and saw Shirni lying there, her ears red. Shirni was vexed. Did he really see her writing his name? As she lay on the table, the more she thought about it, the more uneasy she became. She suddenly turned her eyes and met Chin Sighting's. Their eyes met, and Chin Sighting raised his cold brows to look at her. Shirni was still lying on the table. As she turned her head, a corner of the piece of paper filled with his name leaked out. His name was clearly written on it. Chin Sighting glanced at it, then at her, and then quietly retracted his gaze. Chapter 1481. Outside the window, it began to drizzle again. It was about to officially enter summer. When the wind blew, it was no longer too cold. It still carried the fragrance of summer grass. The drizzle gurgled down, as though it was scratching one's heart. It was very itchy. The young man and the young girl's thoughts were gentle and warm with the drizzle. All things grew. Mom, you really don't have to worry about me. Why do you have so many things to worry about? Shirni took advantage of the Sunday afternoon break to lie on the sofa at home to answer Mrs. Yang Jinjin's international call. Listening to her old mother's nagging, she placed the phone by her ear and turned on the speakerphone. She lay there and said, I just had a small cold some time ago. Wasn't it the flu at that time? Everyone is easily infected. Your daughter just caught a cold. Uncle Chin must have exaggerated when he told you. I'm not that weak. I only had a fever for 1 day. For the next 2 days, I only rested at home. I didn't have a high fever for 3 days. I only had a fever for the next 2 days. I didn't have a high fever for 3 days. How can I not worry? There are clearly so many people at home. But you insist on living alone near the school. I think you should let the people at home move in with you. Mrs. Yang Jinjin was really worried. No, I came out to live alone because I want to be quiet. Auntie Xiang will come over occasionally to take care of my daily life. Just pack a bunch of delicious food for me, and put it in the refrigerator. Let the other aunties be busy at home. I don't need anyone here. Besides, your daughter has already grown up. It's indeed time for her to get used to her own life. Other people's daughters are all thinking about how to get closer to their parents. Only you, girl, think about living alone every day. Mrs. Yang Jinjin snorted. You've had a fever for 3 days in a row. Your mother's heart aches to death. How can there be 3 days? Only the first day was a fever. Later on, the two of us only rested at home. In fact, I was going to school the next day, but Uncle Qin refused to let me. He even called Auntie Xiang to watch me and asked me to rest at home. In the end, I still had to coax and pester the teacher. I asked the teacher to call them, and finally let me out of the house. Shinianj chuckled. Don't worry. Just focus on your work outside. Shida Group has been supported by you and Dad for so many years. Just take care of your health. Don't worry about me. After all, I've already grown up. How's your relationship with the little classmate you like? Her mother couldn't hold back her gossipy spirit. Shinianj was lying on the sofa. She had almost fallen asleep from answering the phone. When she heard this, she opened her eyes and suddenly became extremely energetic. She looked at the ceiling and blinked. Mom, when you and my dad were together, you were the one who chased after him first, right? I remember hearing my dad boast about it before. Ms. Yang Jinjin, do you believe his nonsense? But there are many old servants at home who can testify. Back then, the Shi family was just a small shop in the hands of the older generation. My father, the young master of the Shi family, was also quite down and out. Everyone said that you chased after him. Madame Yang Jinjin had a headache. Mom, if you like a boy, how can you pursue him? The prerequisite is that the other party must like you. Otherwise, a one-sided love won't bear any fruit, silly girl. I think he likes me, but I'm not sure. After a moment of silence, she said, The way I chased after your father, cough. Let's not talk about it. Although her mother did not say anything, Shinianj had heard the aunties at home whispering about her parents. It seemed like her mother had asked her father to travel abroad together. When they returned, her mother was pregnant, and she was the one in her stomach. Did she mean to take the initiative? In that era, her mother had the courage to pursue true love. But at that time, her parents were already in their 20s. They were at the age of marriage. She was only 18 years old now. They were still students. She didn't dare to think about anything else. That night, she had only dreamed that Qin Sighting had kissed her. She had been embarrassed for a long time. You're not far from the college entrance examination, right? Is the little classmate you like also planning to study medicine? He probably won't learn it. It can also be said that he definitely won't study medicine. Then the two of you don't have much time left. What are you afraid of? If you want to confess, just confess. If it's awkward in the end, at most, we won't contact each other after graduation. Aren't you usually very bold? Why are you so timid recently? Are you still my biological mother? You actually took the initiative to encourage your daughter to confess. She really wanted to confess. In fact, even if she didn't say it, Qin Sighting definitely knew that she liked him. However, the two of them hadn't exposed this layer yet. Perhaps it was because he knew that no matter what the outcome was, they couldn't be together. Her mother's words were easy to say, but how could it be that easy to do? If her confession failed, she would be sad and uncomfortable until the college entrance examination. Then, she would face a situation where she would completely separate from him and never contact him again. If her confession succeeded, she might face a long-distance relationship after the exam. That would be even more torturous, and it probably wouldn't last long. Instead, it would destroy the initial beauty. Mom, back then, you ate my dad so hard because you were pregnant with me, right? Shinianj didn't know what she was thinking and just said it casually. I guess so. Yang Jinjin vaguely felt that this topic was not good. I'm an adult now. If I really like someone, can I use your method? For example, pouncing on a male god or something. Shinianj, don't even think about it. Madame Yang Jinjin's voice instantly shrank. How old are you? What nonsense did the aunties at home say to you? You're not allowed to learn, understand. You're still a child. If you keep thinking nonsense, Your father and I will go back and break your legs. Sure, Nianj was really just saying that. Even if she had 100 guts, she wouldn't dare to pounce on Qin's sighting. She blinked and smiled. I know. I'm still young. I don't dare. Thank you, Mom. Don't worry. I'm rational. I'll protect myself. TSK, I think the little classmate you like should be the one to be protected. Sure, Nianj. I'm not talking to you anymore. I don't have any holidays recently. It's not easy for me to have an afternoon off on Sunday. I've been calling you. I want to sleep for a while. All right, take good care of yourself. When it comes to relationships, you must be rational. It's not long before the college entrance examination. Don't make us worry. And got it. Sure, Nianj hung up the phone, turned around, and buried her face in the sofa. Chapter 1482. Sure, Nianj really lay on the sofa and fell asleep. In her dream, after the college entrance examination, Qin Sighting went to the best famous school with the results of the provincial top scorer. She stood on the empty seat with the admission notice from the medical university and watched as the people beside her left. She slept for a long time, and her dream was also very long. When she suddenly opened her eyes, the sky outside was already dark. It was really not a happy dream. She turned over on the sofa and saw that her phone was still by the side. There was something in her heart that kept hanging on to her, causing her mood to fluctuate. It was very uncomfortable. She wanted to confirm something with Qin Sighting, but she wasn't sure. However, if she didn't do anything, she was afraid that she would miss something. Qin Sighting, this person, was probably poisonous, making people addicted to it and unable to quit. She thought for a moment, then edited a message and sent it over. Qin Sighting. In fact, she did it on purpose. She liked to call his name first to see his reaction. Would he reply with a question mark, an? Or would he call her name? No matter what he replied, it would be a small joy for her. However, this time, he did not reply with a question mark or an N. A few minutes later, Qin Sighting replied to her. What's wrong? Sure, Nianj held her phone and smiled foolishly. It was really, really beautiful. 3 words. She climbed on the sofa and happily replied to him. What are you doing? Wouldn't this seem too intimate? But he clearly knew that she liked him. She had never hidden anything. Since he did not avoid her under such circumstances, it meant that he did not hate her. In fact, she also wanted to know if he would accept her if she became closer to him. To what extent would he accept her? Her phone vibrated. He replied. Sure, Nianj smiled and clicked on it. She saw that Qin Sighting had replied to her. In the library. Library? At this time, Sure, Nianj had only noticed that the sky had turned dark. She lowered her head to look at the time on her phone. It was already 7:30 p.m. She immediately sat up on the sofa with her phone in her hand. Which library? The school library. Qin Sighting replied. Provincial library. He went to the provincial library during the afternoon break. He's really a top student. Usually, they finish school quite late. If he was still in the library, he probably wouldn't be back too early. She got up to wash her face and change her clothes. Since it was the weekend, and she wasn't going to school, she didn't need to wear the school uniform. She put on a white knee-length skirt, which was as white as the white shirt he usually wore. Then she put on a pair of white sneakers and a baseball cap of the same color. She picked up her bag and left the house. Uncle Qin wasn't around today. She took a taxi outside and went straight to the provincial library. After entering, he found that there were quite a lot of people inside. After asking the librarian where the revision books were, he went directly to the upper floor and went to the revision materials area. After walking through a few rows of bookshelves for a while, she walked forward to a bookshelf and suddenly saw Qin Sighting standing there and picking up a book. Today he was wearing a simple light-colored linen t-shirt and a pair of old grayish-blue jeans. His back view looked as straight as jade, and his clean and good-looking fingers were flipping through the pages of the book. Seeing this, Sure, Nianj was too embarrassed to disturb him. However, she had specially taken a taxi here so late at night. If she didn't go and talk to him, why did she come here so late at night? She really missed him very much if she couldn't see him for an afternoon. She couldn't imagine how much longing she would have to face after graduation. Liking someone was really a kind of sweet and sour torture. Nianj leaned against the bookshelf and looked at him. The moment the clean young man seemed to have sensed something and suddenly turned back, she accidentally met his gaze before she could dodge. Qin Sighting looked at her, and then saw that there was no one else behind her. His gaze then landed on her again. However, he did not ask anything. He casually picked up the book he had just read, and turned to look for other books. Nianj did not speak much, nor did she explain. After all, the library needed to be quiet. If she was discovered, so be it. She followed behind him, and imitated him to pick books. In the end, when she picked up a physics revision book, Qin Sighting glanced at her. "Do you understand it?" Her intelligence was once again looked down upon. Nianj turned back to look at him with some bitterness. "Even if I don't understand, I have to read it. After all, the college entrance examination is coming up." He turned around, and continued to look for books. Without looking back, his voice rang out. "There are medical books 4 rows away. If you're bored, you can go look for them. There's no need to force yourself to look through the physics revision questions here." Hearing that there was actually a medical book, Nianj immediately perked up. She turned around, and rushed to the place 4 rows away. As expected, after walking out 4 rows, she saw that the rows were filled with medical books. She quickly found a few books that interested her, and carried them back. Seeing that Qin Sighting had already taken a few books, and sat down in front of the row of empty tables, she leaned over and sat down opposite him. There was coffee in the provincial library. She stood up and bought 2 cups of coffee. Without speaking, she gently placed them by his hand. Qin Sighting glanced at her, and then glanced at her. Seeing the medical books in front of her, he asked, "Do you like studying medicine?" This was not the first time he had asked this question, but every time, she would answer seriously and nod. This time, Qin Sighting did not say anything else. He only curled his lips slightly. "That's good too. You should be able to pass the medical school exam. In the future, saving lives and helping the injured will all depend on you, Dr. Shi." It turned out that Qin Sighting knew how to joke. Nianj's face was full of joy. Without thinking, she suddenly said, "Actually, male doctors are also very handsome. Almighty Qin, have you never thought of studying medicine? With your ability to accept things, if you study medicine, you'll probably learn everything very quickly. Furthermore, you're very strict. If you study medicine, you'll definitely be a very good doctor in the future." Qin Sighting picked up the cup of coffee by his hand, and had just placed it by his lips. He had not drunk it yet. Hearing her words, he glanced at her again. She met his gaze with a face full of smiles. It was already dark outside, but she was like a little sun. He chuckled and put down the coffee cup. His slender fingers gently touched the edge of the cup. He suddenly said in a low voice, "You want me to study medicine?" Originally, she just said it casually, but she didn't expect him to continue this topic. For a moment, she was caught off guard, and inexplicably felt as if her heart had been hit by something. It's the last day of the month. Sweetly, I'm begging for monthly votes. Chapter 1483. Would he consider studying medicine? However, with his situation, he could clearly go to a better school. Coupled with the Qin family's strength, he would definitely become a top big shot in the financial world in the future. What she wanted was to sit in the hospital's consultation room and smile at every patient who came to see her. She wanted to help them solve all kinds of difficult and complicated diseases. It couldn't be said to be a great dream like saving lives and helping the injured. In fact, it was just a hobby, a deep-rooted hobby influenced by her grandfather since she was young. Qin Sighting could take a better path. The path of being a doctor was not worthy of him. Nianj broke the unrealistic fantasies in her heart, and raised her eyes to smile at him. "I'm joking. In the future, you can be CEO Qin, a scientist, a chemist, a physicist, or a leader in the business and financial world. A job like being a doctor isn't suitable for you." The young girl, who had a hopeful expression earlier, instantly regained her rationality. Her emotions were all expressed on her face. There was no need to ask to know that her face was filled with, "I don't want to drag you from the golden highland to the bitter abyss of the medical industry." Gene Sighting did not say anything more. He retracted his gaze and continued to read the book in front of him. Shirnianj picked up the coffee and took a sip. She then lowered her head to look at the coffee in front of her. She gently exhaled and calmed her heart. Yes, she couldn't ask him to study medicine with her because of her selfishness. Gene Sighting's future was bright. It was completely different from her small goal. Therefore, since it was impossible for them to be together in the future, she should restrain her love for him and maintain their current friendly deskmate relationship. Otherwise, after the college entrance examination, she would probably be depressed. After flipping through a few pages, she closed the book. Well, it's getting late. I'll borrow these books to read at home. Almighty Qin, you should go back early. The world outside is chaotic now. It's not safe for good-looking boys to walk outside too late. With that, she stood up and met Gene Sighting's gaze. She hardened her heart and tried her best to suppress the surging emotions in her heart. She picked up the books and left. Gene Sighting sat there and turned his head to look at her back without looking back. His eyes were light, but there seemed to be a clear stream hidden in them, trickling past. After returning to Lishui Villa, Shirnianj placed the books on the sofa and sat by the side to stare at them. What was wrong with her today? Wasn't he usually fine? Gene Sighting had just asked her if she wanted him to study medicine. If he didn't like her at all, he definitely wouldn't continue this topic with her. He was clearly asking her. But why didn't she answer? Why did he retreat when his opponent took a step towards him? This shouldn't be her. However, the path of medicine was not suitable for him. It was already the middle of April. In another 2 months, it would be the college entrance examination. Could it be that she wanted Gene Sighting to give up his bright future and beg him to study medicine with her for the sake of this deskmate relationship for more than 60 days? Shirnianj lay on the sofa in frustration, her hands clenched into fists. She still didn't feel relieved. She kicked the medical books off the sofa and continued to bury her face in the back of the sofa. So sad. His heart ached and ached. She felt as though she had missed a relationship she wanted the most, but she couldn't. Her mother was right. They were still young. No one could be responsible for the other party's future. Now, she could willfully beg him to study medicine with her. What about in the future? That was the young master of the Qin family. His future should not be trapped in the hospital's consultation room and operating table. His future should be bright and dazzling. In the end, Shirnianj fell asleep on the sofa. When she was awake, she did not feel much. However, if her heart was blocked, she dreamed of the day of graduation and Gene Sighting's back view. She actually cried out of grievance. As she cried, she felt that the sofa was wet and cold. She abruptly opened her eyes and sniffed, only to realize that she had been lying on the sofa all night and had even woken up crying. She quickly got up and picked up her phone to check the time. It was 3 in the morning. She sniffed again, got up, and returned to the bedroom to sleep. She slept until dawn, took a shower, and rushed out of the door. When she arrived under the tree outside the school, she hesitated for a moment, but still couldn't bear to give up the opportunity to walk into the school with him every day. She stood there and waited. In the end, she waited for 20 minutes. It was almost time for morning self-study. Gene Sighting's figure could not be seen at the intersection ahead. Shirnianj looked at the time again. That shouldn't be the case. Gene Sighting usually wouldn't be late. Recently, he had been taking this road. If he wanted to change roads, he should have sent her a message. Besides, he basically never changed roads unless his mother's car appeared. However, that time, he also said that he would come and ask her to wait. She hesitantly clicked on Gene Sighting's number. After a few minutes, she dialed. She had never called him. She had only sent him text messages. Suddenly calling, she heard that her heartbeat seemed to slow down along with the beeping sound. It was so slow that she could only hear her heartbeat and the beeping sound on the phone. She could not hear the sounds of her classmates chatting and walking in front of her. The beeping sound continued for a long time, but no one answered. Shirnianj frowned, not knowing what had happened. She hoped that because it was Monday today, Cheen Sighting had stayed up too late in the library last night and had just overslept. She sat in her seat and waited for the entire morning, but Cheen Sighting did not come. When she went to eat with Zhao Xiaoqing in the afternoon, she did not even have the mood to eat properly. It tasted like chewing wax. After eating, she called Cheen Sighting. Previously, she had sent so many messages, but she had never called. When she called in the morning, he did not pick up. Now, in fact, she didn't know what she was feeling. Was it because his phone wasn't by his side, or because he didn't want to pick it up? If Cheen Sighting didn't come for the whole day and didn't contact her via phone or text message, sure Nianj would probably not be able to sleep tonight. On the way back to the classroom from the cafeteria, Zhao Xiaoqing could tell that Sure Nianj was not in a good mood. She also knew that this was probably the reason why Almighty Qin did not come today, so she did not ask much. She only changed the topic along the way, trying to distract Sure Nianj. When she returned to the classroom, she did not see Cheen Sighting. Sure Nianj sat in her seat, feeling especially flustered and restless. This feeling was really too bad. Why did he not come to school? Chapter 1484. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Cheen Sighting finally arrived. At that time, Sure Nianj was lying on the desk, staring at her phone. When she heard footsteps approaching her, she subconsciously raised her head. When she saw that it was Cheen Sighting, she immediately sat up. Cheen Sighting? She called out to him softly. Cheen Sighting answered. Why didn't you come in the morning? Sure Nianj quickly looked at him from top to bottom, afraid that something had happened to him. Otherwise, why would he not appear in the morning? As she looked at him, she said, I called you but you didn't pick up. Cheen Sighting sat down. I don't have my phone on me. Sure Nianj wanted to say something, but she opened her mouth and did not say anything. She looked at him for a long time before her gaze landed on his left hand. His left hand was wrapped in bandages. The white bandages were glaring, and there seemed to be some unwashed blood on his fingers. She instantly felt a sharp pain in her heart. It was so painful that she could hardly speak. What happened to your hand? She stared at him for a long time before finding her voice and asking. Cheen Sighting did not answer. Coincidentally, the bell rang, so he did not speak again. Sure Nianj looked at his hand. She could not understand why his hand was injured so early in the morning, when he was still fine in the library last night. Looking at the bandages and the fact that his left hand could not move, she knew that his injury was not light. Did something happen to him this morning or last night? He didn't even send a message or call. Now that he was here, he didn't say a word. How could she be at ease when he was so injured? When Sure Nianj heard the teacher enter, she retracted her gaze, but her heart felt uncomfortable. Her heart ached, and even felt a little angry. As a result, she did not want to ask a single word. She did not want to know the reason. She lay on the table, and no longer looked at him. Cheen Sighting heard the noise when she took out her pen. He glanced at her, but he could only see the back of her ponytail. He retracted his gaze. After a while he glanced at her again. Sure Nianj did not dare to look at Cheen Sighting's left hand for the entire afternoon. Even when she wanted to go to the toilet with Zhao Xiaoqing after class, she did not say a word to him. She only went out with Zhao Xiaoqing when Cheen Sighting stood up. When he returned, he glanced at her. She did not say anything, and sat down when he stood up. She still did not want to talk to him, but when he got up, she could see the wound on his left hand from a closer distance. Looking at the bandage, there seemed to be some faint traces of blood seeping out of his palm. Her heart hurt, as if it had been pierced by a needle. Every hole that was pierced by the needle was piercing her sharply, making her feel uncomfortable. Before school ended, Sure Nianj finished copying the homework the teacher had given her. She tore it off and placed it on Cheen Sighting's table, but she still did not speak to him. Cheen Sighting glanced at the homework Sure Nianj had helped him with. He did not ask her to help, but even though he was injured on his left hand, it was still more difficult for him to hold the notes and papers and write so many words than usual. She silently wrote a copy for him and threw it to him without a word. She was clearly concerned, but the anger in her voice was too obvious. Sheen Sighting did not say anything, but he gratefully folded the homework and placed it in his book. He could not use one hand. No matter what he did, he could only use his right hand. It was actually very inconvenient. Nianj frowned and reached out to help him put the book into his bag. She then zipped up his bag. Neither of them spoke. School ended neither too early nor too late today. School ended at 8 o'clock. As usual, the two of them walked on the road in front of them. Usually, they didn't talk much during the 20 minutes after school. But today, the atmosphere was especially silent. This was because Nianj did not speak. She did not even say a word. However, Sheen Sighting could feel her gaze. In the heavy atmosphere, Nianj would occasionally turn to look at Sheen Sighting's face. She tried her best not to look at his hand. Otherwise, her heart would really hurt to death. Every time Sheen Sighting felt her gaze, he would turn to look at her. His expression was very calm, and his gaze at Nianj was also very calm. Nianj could not figure out what was going on between such a gentle and outstanding person and his mother. How did his hand get injured like this in just one night? Halfway through the journey, Nianj had long forgotten the rationality she had when she returned home from the library yesterday. She could not bear to really not say anything along the way. After all, she had waited for him for the entire morning and did not speak in the afternoon. After a while, she would not be able to see him again. She asked in a muffled voice, "What happened to your hand?" Sheen Sighting glanced at her again and answered, "I was cut by the broken glass. It's a superficial wound. It's nothing." Nothing? If it wasn't serious, he could have simply bandaged it in the morning. Why would he not come to school for the entire morning? She pinched the hem of her school uniform and continued to ask in a muffled voice, "How did you hurt yourself? Did you hurt yourself? Or did something happen?" Sheen Sighting pondered for a moment, then smiled and did not answer. Nianj waited for a while but did not hear his answer. She knew that he did not want to say, "In a while, I'll be taking another path home. School ended quite early today. Where do you live? Do you have any bandages or gauze at home? The gauze on your hand is already soaked in blood. You should bandage it again. I'll go to your place and help you bandage it." Sheen Sighting stopped in his tracks. As though he had thought of something, he looked at the intersection that led to her home and asked, "You know how to bandage?" "Yes. Have you forgotten that I'm going to study medicine? I've been by my grandfather's side since I was young. I knew how to bandage external injuries when I was 12 or 13 years old. I'm even more professional than many nurses in the clinic." Speaking of which, Nianj felt that she finally had something to help him with. Sheen Sighting nodded. Nianj waited to follow him. However, when they reached the intersection, Sheen Sighting did not continue forward. Instead, he walked toward the intersection that led to Lishui Villa. She looked at him in surprise and followed. Let's go to your place," he said. Nianj was surprised. He was going to her place. She did have a medicine box at home, and there was no lack of bandages. Ever since she was young, her family had never lacked any medicine. After all, there was an old doctor at home. These were all fixed habits in her life. However, she did not expect him to choose to go to her place. Uncle Qin was not around tonight, and Auntie Xiang was still at the Shi family's house. In other words, Sheen Sighting was going to her house in the middle of the night. Chapter 1485. At the thought of this, Nianj's little heart was about to jump out. Seeing that she was still standing behind in a daze, Sheen Sighting glanced at her again. His uninjured right hand suddenly reached out, grabbed her wrist, and led her toward Lishui Villa. Before Nianj could return to her senses, she was stunned again. Her heart pounded violently. When he realized that she was still standing on the spot, Sheen Sighting turned back to look at her and frowned lightly. "Aren't you going to bandage me?" Heavens! He was really going to her house. That's right. Then why aren't you leaving? "I don't have a medical kit at home, nor do I have anything that can be used," he said. Before she could reply, he glanced at her again. "Don't you have an auntie and a driver at home? Is there no one else at home?" Should she say yes or no? Normally speaking, there was definitely no one at home, but she felt that he felt that there was someone at home. so he didn't mind. He just went to bandage his wound. If she said that there was no one at home, he might not go. But when he arrived later, he would still find that there was no one there. Forget it, she would follow her heart. Anyway, she wanted him to go. She did not answer. She just looked at him and said, "You're right. I have a medical kit at home. Let's go." On the way home, Nianj looked at her wrist that he had just held, and then at Qin Sighting's figure walking by her side. She felt that the amount of information was a little too much. Her brain was not enough, and she was about to explode. He actually took the initiative to say that he would go to her place, and even agreed to let her bandage him. In other words, he allowed her to see the wound on his hand. He did not treat her as an outsider and guard against her. When they returned home, Qin Sighting saw that the lights in her villa were off. Only a row of automatic sensor lights in the front yard lit up when they approached. "There's no one at home," he said. There was. Auntie Xiang and Uncle Qin usually come over. Tonight, maybe they have something to do at home, and thought that I only left school at 9:30, so they're not here." Nianj lied with some difficulty, but she instinctively felt that she could not deceive him. Qin Sighting only glanced at the pitch-black window, and did not continue asking. When she pushed open the carved door in front of the villa, and turned back to look at him, he looked at her back and walked in. She quickly walked into the villa, picked up the remote control in front of the door, and turned on all the lights in the villa. In an instant the light shone brightly. Nianj did not want to waste too much time. She really wanted to see how injured his hand was. "Sit down." She pointed to a small bar near the dining table. The bar was designed by the original owner of the house. She could occasionally sit there and drink juice. Anyway, she had never drunk alcohol at home. Qin Sighting did not say anything else, and went over. Nianj rushed upstairs, and took out the medicine box from the bedroom. She then carried the medicine box over, and went to the small bar counter. As she opened the medicine box, she said, "Put your hand on it. I'll open it to take a look first. Do you need to disinfect it and apply medicine? I think there's blood seeping out. Hasn't the bleeding stopped when you went to the hospital?" "It stopped. I think my left hand moved when I picked up something in the afternoon, so there's some blood." Qin Sighting was very calm, as though he really treated her as a doctor, and would answer any question. Right now, Nianj could not care too much about her emotions. She lowered her head, and carefully removed the gauze on his hand. Then she saw that his slender fingers were still stained with dried blood. There were several wounds on his palm. It looked like he had really been cut by glass shards. Some of the wounds were quite deep. "How did you get injured like this?" She immediately frowned in heartache. She lowered her head to take a closer look, and then took out a disinfectant cotton from the medicine box to wipe the blood and wounds on his palm. As though he could not feel the pain of the disinfectant, Qin Sighting sat there expressionlessly. Looking at her serious expression, he said, "This morning I crushed the glass." Nianj's mind was in a mess. She raised her head to look at him, and saw that he did not seem to be lying. It was a glass cup. This was not a TV show. How could he crush it with his bare hands? Unless he was really angry, or something had happened that would make him hold back all the strength in his hand. How could he just crush it? Judging from the extent of the injury on his palm, it was likely that the broken glass was in his hand, but he did not let go. She asked in disbelief, "Why? If it's broken, then it's broken. Why aren't you letting go? Why are you still holding it in your hand?" Qin Sighting looked straight into her eyes. "It's just a superficial wound. I think the artery in my hand was injured, which is why the bleeding is more serious. Actually, it's not very painful." "Not very painful? This is a hand. Even your fingers have small scratches. Don't you have any pain nerves?" Nianj gritted her teeth in anger. Thankfully, his bones and nerves were not injured. Nianj inexplicably thought that with his beautiful hands, if he were to become a doctor, how beautiful would he look when he picked up the scalpel? If his nerves were injured, he would never be able to learn medicine in this lifetime. Why did she think of learning medicine again? She held her breath, and continued to disinfect and clear the blood. However, she was indeed very good at bandaging. When she was young, she often practiced with the old servants at home. Even when the gardener accidentally cut his hand, she would take the initiative to help bandage it. As time passed, her bandaging skills were really better than many intern nurses. But this was Chin Sighting's hand. No matter how well she bandaged it, her hand was still trembling visibly. After disinfecting it, she went to the medicine box to search for medicine suitable for him. Chin Sighting's gaze also landed on her face. Sensing that he was looking at her, Shi Nian's heart began to race again. There was no one at home right now. It was already so late, and the sky outside was dark. She suddenly recalled someone who said that a man and a woman were alone. Her hand rummaged through the medicine box. After searching for a long time, she suddenly forgot what she should be looking for. In the end, she picked up a cold film and was stunned. His hand was injured. What cold film was she going to use? She quickly put it back and turned to see that Chin Sighting was looking at her. He had clearly seen her stupid action earlier. Awkward. Agitated. It was really killing her. But right now his palm was still injured. Right now, she felt that the hand in front of her had become especially precious. She quickly found the medicine and carefully applied it for him. What should she do? Her hand was actually trembling. She was clearly very professional, okay? Why was she trembling? On the first day of the month, I'm here to ask for monthly votes again, ha ha ha. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.